G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Faction Focus. It's the coach here, and I've had a hot request to start off the show with the Jurassic Park music. I can't do it because of copyright, but I can go. That's really bad, but that's good because YouTube won't pull this video down. We are here to talk all things Seraphon. The show is very much about starting your army, building it out, and then getting it to a really competitive level. And no matter if you're starting in the hobby because you are enjoying some lizards and some dinosaurs or some celestial demons, or if you're looking to go competitively at a tournament, I've got two amazing guests here. They're going to help us break this book down and understand fundamentally how we build out and get the most out of our Seraphon. First, I'm going to introduce, I've got Cameron, aka Dreamer. He is a long-term Seraphon player, has done it competitively, taken it to the New Zealand Masters. He's been playing on Tabletop Simulator, crushing everyone who's not Halo Heart. How are we, Dreamer? What's going on?
Pretty good.
You've been doing really well with Seraphon. I know you did it before this book came out. So do you want to, how would you best introduce yourself other than that?
Apart from my actual name's Cameron, as you've heard. I have a probably a little known for the killer skink Cuddly Wuddly. If anyone's ever seen that little toy plushie, maybe at CanCon, maybe when I versed them on the battlefield with them.
It is pretty sweet, and your Twitter's down below as well, so people can go check out your little Cuddly Wuddly. All right, well, that's great. Okay, glad that Master Level Player has just said he's got a Cuddly Wuddly Skink. Great to have you. He's actually really good, by the way. He's just not very articulate. He's from New Zealand. Let's hold it against him. But we have someone from my side of the country. It's Ewart. Ewart as well has been doing very well competitively in Age of Sigmar, did well at CanCon, and most importantly, did an event called Anzac Cup last year when... What was that? That was a couple of months ago, and essentially, a long time ago. But anyway, it was the old book, and you did really well with the old book. So you are someone who's been able to pick it up and run really well. Ewart, anything you want to add to that?
I will say it was nice and just before the changes to teleporting in the old book. So there was the randomized teleporting table, and that was a lot of fun. But there has been success to a lot of sixes.
All right. Well, you're being modest. You guys are very good. We're going to talk about all things Seraphon. We're going to start it off very much about what is these space lizards, these Jurassic Park looking lizard man from the old world, Seraphon in the new world. They're something that people have loved painting. People have been curious about getting into. Who on earth are the Seraphon, Dreamer?
Seraphon are pretty much like the old-time space lizards of the kind of the original old ones, and it's, if you sum it up in a meme, they're the Aztec dino riding lizards in a way.
Yeah. So, and from everything that I've read about the Seraphon, and this might be good context for the people who are coming back from the Lizardman era. So, in the Warhammer Fantasy battles, you had these essentially demons, or essentially space beings, aliens per se. So basically, the way the old world really started, or what made it the old world, was that the Slans came in, and the Slans taught the elves the magic. They taught the dwarves how to forge, and very much they were there to protect against chaos. Their mortal enemy is chaos. They were the people who set up what was essentially a realm gate back in the old days. And unfortunately, that was what brought in the realm of chaos in the Warhammer Fantasy battles. They are very Aztec orientated. And then in the new world, they became like these manifestations of dreams and thoughts and celestial kind of, it was a little bit odd. Yeah. And they've kind of changed that a little bit, correct? So if you like that old Seraphon kind of narrative, they have this section where they've kind of hung around in the mortal realms, and they are more lizard man, celestial beings, very carnivorous dinosaurs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then you've also still got that space lizard, or order version of a demon that can kind of drop from the sky. Ewart, is there anything that you'd add to that, or did I just horribly butcher my interpretation of what the Seraphon are all about?
So my favorite difference with the old Lizardmen and the new Lizardmen is old Lizardmen were sort of isolationists, and they weren't doing very well because there weren't many of them left, and they were sort of like protecting what they had left. New Lizardmen are no longer the old man sitting on his porch telling the kids to go over his lawn. They are now colonizing the realms, and they're out there to take the land back, and they're out there to kick some ass, which is fantastic. They're just building jungles wherever they go, and they're turning everything into Lustria.
And that's it. They very much kind of, they still have a very finite resource. So, they're not kind of hanging out in the free cities. They're not just being a generic ally to everybody in the mortal realms. Yeah. They pick their battles, but they're very much that force. They're that force, but they've kind of retconned a little bit, so they're not the demon as they used to be.
No, that was a little silly.
It's a bit odd. But long story short, they are the army that is opposing chaos. They are the direct opposition to chaos, and they are supporting the Stormcast Eternals to defeat chaos in the mortal realms.
If I could add something else, one of the things I like is a lot of the Sigmar factions have a correlation to a 40k faction, like lore-wise, like Eldar and High Elves and stuff, obviously. Lizardmen are kind of weird, where I like to call them a mix between Grey Knights, Tyranids, and Tau, because they're Tau in a caste-based system. They're Tyranids with all beasties and different species, and then they're Grey Knights because they're out to hunt chaos. It's really weird.
Well, if you're a 40k player listening to this and you play one of those three, come join us in our Space Lizard Seraphon. No, I really enjoy the Seraphon, jokes aside. They are a wonderful force. They are, and look, I'm kind of jumping the boat here because I get really excited about this army. What attracted you guys to it? How about that one? Instead of me jumping at with my excitement that I haven't bought a model, why did you start collecting Seraphon?
I mean, you did the joke with Jurassic Park at the start, but I've loved dinosaurs my entire life, so that's obvious an attraction. It's like dinosaurs, laser beams, Aztec themes. I fell in love with them very quickly, and like a lot of their named characters and their stories were awesome in the old world. Unfortunately, only Croque is carried over for the moment. We might see ones later, but yeah, it's all very awesome.
A few people have been crying out for Muzamundi and things like that, but
Croque, give me Croque.
I know Cameron is trying to bring back one of the old worlds. He loves, is it Tichichi or what's the
Oxalot?
Oh, you like Oxalot. I was talking to someone else about the Skink one, but Cameron, what brought you over to Seraphon?
Well, when I was a kid, it was actually I can't remember which version it was. It was one of the original models I first ever painted as a kid. And then when I got back into it 5 years ago, my friend actually suggested I try out Lisman Hayden Holmes. I'm not sure if you know him, Coach. He does the KO.
Yeah, I know Hayden.
Yeah, and when I was in Palmerston North with all those boys, they just never let me live it down. They always gave me shit. Goon Boss always hated my army. But I obviously love the meme of Aztec dinosaurs riding other dinosaurs as well.
How can you not like that?
Yeah.
For me, it's very much around the color combination and what you can do creatively is what draws me to Seraphon. I love that you could contrast them and they look exceptional. Like they really take well to contrast, even though the models are like 10 to 20 years old. They take it to it perfectly. You can do some amazing color combinations. You can bring a really unique flair, but at the same time, they're really good on the table, which then leads me to Dreamer. What are their strengths? What makes a Seraphon really good? And if I was new to Seraphon, what do I want to think about building around?
Well, one of their biggest strengths is probably that since the new book is magic, because they've managed to make it so instead of we're being normally +1 to cast in the hero phase with that old constellation, where it can now get up to +2 to +3 real easily, and then I can even buff it into +4 to everything casting, dispelling, unbinding, which is very hard if you roll. Like if you saw some of my rolls in that tabletop, is when I rolled like a 10, I got a 14. You can't really dispel that, and you can just literally snipe heroes from within the hero phase straight away, especially if it's turn 1.
So magical supremacy is something that this army is going to bring to the table.
Yeah, pretty much. As well as one of the other strengths is salamanders. If you can get them into range in their 12-inch range bubble, they will literally destroy nearly everything in its path.
Right,
Because
so
they hit easily. They have one of the biggest rends for their points, and they do a lot of damage real easily.
All right, so they've got some good range threats. So you've got those salamanders that are good at range. They've got good spell casting. What else are they good at?
So I went a little bit of a different direction in their strength. I think the Lizardman's strength is being able to interact in every phase of the game. So they do have a little bit of everything. Like in the hero phase, you've got good spell casting, you've got the ability to teleport, healing, all sorts of utility. Even in movement, we have a lot of differing movement stats. So like slow moving saurus, high moving cavalry and skinks, teleporting again, helping you get around the battlefield. There's combat units, there's shooting units, there's a little bit of everything in Seraphon, I think, which is one of the things that drew me to them as well. Unlike some other armies like Oryx, where you're stuck with sort of a combat army, Seraphon you can build many ways, which is fantastic. And I like I call it the adaptive strategy on the battlefield. And I think that like once you show up to a table, your strategy with your army can change quite a bit with Seraphon, depending on your opponent.
So it sounds like it's an army that has everything, but it also doesn't have to be the best at everything. So you're probably not going to be the best shooting like a character in Overlords. You're probably not going to be best, you're not going to have the best monsters in the world. Like you don't have Frost Lords, you don't have Stonehorn, but you've got a bit of everything. If you want to build a monster heavy list, you've got things like Carnosaurs. If you want to cast Wizard, kind of challenge the Zench meta, you've got the Slants and the Skinks and, all got some stuff there.
Cameron mentioned very powerful magic, but I still don't think you're going to be able to beat like a Free Cities magic specific army. But you're going to be very good at magic. But then you focus on other things, right?
Yeah, and look, for my Halo Heart, which is that magic free city, you spend a lot of points to get to that point, while you guys don't have to spend nearly as much point to have that magical supremacy. Yeah. So, look, it sounds like there's a lot of cool stuff. I think the models are great. The value is great. You can buy some, start collecting boxes and really kick off your army. They're super easy to paint with contrast, or you got a range of colors. And, I can see that Crazy Horse is in the chat here. One of the things that I know he loves and a few other of my friends love is the Forge World Dread Saurian, the big mother.
Oh, yeah.
So there's, if you want something crazy big, you can go really super small stuff like Skinks, but then you got some big crazy stuff as well. So it allows you, like a kid in a toy box, you can just make whatever you want to make.
Yeah.
And they're competitive as well. Like you're going to be able to have a good time on the table.
Yeah.
In saying all of this, what aren't they good at? Like, what are the weaknesses that you want to consider? Because utility and being able to do everything, being a jack of all trades, is a weakness as much as a strength. So what else aren't they good at that you guys need to avoid? Dreamer, like what are some of the things you build around or just accept as a limitation?
A limitation is probably having to... You would have to try and block off, spend a lot of points investing if you don't want to get shot off turn one by like armies like KO and I'm not sure what the Free Cities one that is a shooting heavy.
Tempest Eye.
Yeah, Tempest Eye. They might shoot off your Slan or your Crowe turn one, which can affect the game quite easily if in some ways, because obviously you lose a lot of buffs, a lot of dispels, a lot of spells if you invested in endless spells and whatnot.
So is it fair to say that Seraphon is a hero heavy army?
It can be, but you can obviously have less heroes, but a lot of more bulk. Like you can bulk out in the Saurus warrior department and whatnot. So like you could have maybe 90 plus warriors on the board, and then that's hard to chew through. But it also can bring out its other weakness, which is probably still from the last book, is mortal wounds can take it off pretty easily as well. Even if you have the new Astro Banner bearer, which gives them a 6+ after save if they're within 12.
Yeah, I mean, when I've played against Seraphon armies, especially ones that build heavily around the summoning and very heavily around the Slan, they obviously they make it hard to attack the Slan, but at the same time, you lose that Slan, all of a sudden, all of the things you've built around the Astrolith bearer and all that stuff becomes essentially useless. So keep that in mind. And mortal wounds has always been the thing that I've had to deal out against Seraphon, because you got crazy things like Bastiladons who have that 1+ save. You've always had you've always had monsters. But even before that update, you've always had some monsters with really tough ignoring Rend 1 or ignoring Rend 2.
Yeah.
You've had things that make it really tough. So mortal wounds have you've always been susceptible to that.
Mm.
Any other
want me to add to the weaknesses?
Yeah,
please. I agree with the mortal wound thing. We don't have a whole lot of defense against it at the moment. The Blenner is not great at it. But I was like you said, because the strength is jack of all trades, the weakness is also jack of all trades. I feel like you got to be careful to focus on one thing, because there is another army that's probably going to do it better. So you got to make sure you're always a little bit ready for a new strategy.
Mm.
What about one thing that I've always thought that you guys aren't good at is you guys aren't good at taking a punch. You guys are good at giving a punch, but if someone like turn 1 charges you, let's say, more crushers and piggies, or if they're going to charge you with, some stone horns, or even just a generic, whatever it might be, how you might not be as glass cannon as some other armies, but how well is Seraphon taking a punch?
That's what skinks are for, my friend.
Yeah, because the best example is the Carnosaur, I think, can punch above its weight in damage, but it can't take a hit.
No.
Like a big hit will straight up destroy it, but it can punch above its weight. Like one of my friends was telling me he managed to kill Frostlord on Stonehorn with it, but as soon as another one charged into it, it was dead.
Yeah. It's got to fight first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always found that just taking it down half of 1 bracket or 2 bracket is enough to immobilize it.
Yeah,
and if you can't take it, once you don't take that punch, the things collapse. So taking that dominance on the board, which is why skinks are important. And we're kind of leading into the units right now, but it's good to get an understanding. You guys are great at magic. You've got a whole diverse range of things you can pull from. They're easy to collect. They're wonderful models to paint. At the same time, there are some weaknesses to consider when building out your force.
Mm.
Anything else you guys want to add to either the strength or the weakness discussion, or do we want to start building out and kind of getting into the meat and the potatoes of this book?
I think I'm pretty ready for meat and potatoes.
Yeah, meat and
I'm hungry.
potatoes.
A bit hungry. All right. So we'll kick off and Dreamer, what do I get for swearing my allegiance to Seraphon compared to, say, going Grand Alliance Order?
Well, it depends on what you like. Like, if you want to have an army that wants to just be straight combat orientated, obviously you want to bulk out in your Saurus warriors with either spears. If you want just the neg 1 rend, if you want the neg 2 rend, you take the clubs. If you want more shooty army, get your 2 Bastiladons, Stegodons with their Sky Sweep bows and stuff. If you want dino shooting or heavy orientated armies.
What do I get for the allegiance? So let's
allegiance.
Let's start at the top, right? So by going Grand Alliance Order, I get nothing. Well, basically nothing.
Yeah, pretty much.
If I go Seraphon, what are the good stuff I'm going to tap into?
If you want to go Magicary, obviously go Starborn, which is more magic orientated armies, as well as if you want to have lots of skinks that has more skink abilities in it. If you want to go Coalesced, you want to get your reduced 1 damage. You don't.
Cameron, I think he's talking about the overall Legion's abilities. So the and the constellations.
I'll start it off.
Sorry.
First things first, you get a terrain piece. So you get this Realm Shaper engine that has some rules. Now, so Realm Shaper terrain piece. So does someone want to explain the Realm Shaper to me?
Well, there's a big story to this fella. Look, it's a little bit different to most people's terrain. Yes, it's a double-edged sword in my opinion. Because you place it before territories are chosen. Of course, you can always go to your opponent. And if your opponent's playing Seraphon, it can be doubly bad for you. So yeah, it's an interesting piece of terrain that I think people are going to have to get used to placing. Because the nightmare scenario for me is we're both playing Seraphon, and then we roll off obviously to see who places their temple first, and then I place mine in a territory, and then my opponent places his one next to mine in the same territory, and then he wins the roll off for territory. He picks that territory, and then he's got 2 Realm Shaper engines, and that's a horrifying prospect to me. What it does.
So that only obviously applies in the mirror match. So if you're playing
only in a Seraphon versus Seraphon.
Yeah, but like if I'm not playing against Seraphon, what happens?
It's still a garrisonable building that fits 20 wounds in it. And if people don't know how garrison works, basically if you're trying to shoot a unit in the garrison, it's -1 to hit, which is quite nice. And obviously they still apply all their auras and stuff out from the piece of terrain. So nice buff characters are nice to sit in there with a bodyguard next to them. So if you have a character in there and a unit in there, the character is going to be -2 to hit. So it makes characters very hard to kill.
Yeah.
When you're playing a shooting Seraphon army, that's, again, like a bad prospect to be giving them that piece of terrain so freely. So we're going to have to get used to maybe putting this piece of terrain in no man's land in the middle a lot of the time, and more thinking of it as an objective to get up to, or just a line of sight blocking piece of terrain as well. Cameron, if you want to add to that.
I also feel like there's armies that can obviously imagine, let's say Skaven stick their 2 warp lightning cannons inside of it. That is going to be a pain in the ass to try and kill, unless you, because like it does give a good buff. What it can do is real good. It's just you have to be on the right side of it to be able to use it, because it's not like the OBR terrain piece where it doesn't need a skink wizard a Seraphon wizard in it to use it.
Yeah.
So it's probably important to call out as well that this is an optional piece of terrain.
Correct.
So
yes.
all allegiance-based terrain is optional. So if there's not enough space on the board, or you're not comfortable with putting that piece of terrain down, because you don't get to completely control where it goes, you obviously put it down on the table, but then you've still got to roll for sides. You could choose not to take it, and some Seraphon players are doing that. But I think you made a good point as well. We just need to learn and practice and manipulate it. There's some interesting mechanics that people are slowly learning as they're practicing.
Yeah.
It is a good piece of lying blocking piece of terrain. So you like blocks if something that doesn't want to garrison into it, or it's too far away to try, it can obviously block line of sight, which is actually could be quite good.
Yeah. Like if your Slan is just being a support Slan, just stick it behind it, not inside it, and just you'll never be shot. So don't worry about it.
All right. So we've got the terrain piece. You've got this thing called bound endless spells. What's that? What is a bound endless spell? And do I need to go and buy more endless spells that are bound?
Depends on the kind of Seraphon army you want to play. I definitely think there's builds around it because they're amazing. It's a godsend is what it is to start with. I was quite annoyed when they released endless spells, and Seraphon's kind of, they should be good at spell casting and they should have this like attachment to the model realms, and it finally arrived. So Seraphon has the ability to take all of the endless spells outside of the malign sorcery ones in a bound version. And that costs 10 points extra on most of them, I believe. And basically what that does is only you get to move it, unless it's a Seraphon versus Seraphon battle, in which case it gets a little bit confusing, and then you have to alternate bound ones and then alternate normal ones. And it gets very complicated at that point.
You dice roll first, who moves theirs first or something.
And I think you then have to dice roll again for normal bound spells if you both have bound spells or something. It gets weird.
But outside of the mirror match, again, so
mirror match is just
So yeah, because obviously mirror matches, especially for a new player, they're probably like way over the top here. So just to put it into context, so I cast something like Geminids. So Geminids is a malign sorcery endless spell available to everybody.
Yeah.
Now, normally what happens is I cast it, and at the end of the battle round, we get to move them around. So the person who goes second gets to move the first one. Obviously, there are some endless spells out there that only controlled by certain people, but generically it's a back forth mechanic based on who goes second. If I pay extra, that 10 points, 20 points, whatever it might be, and that's only to Seraphon, that means that the Geminids couldn't come back to me because I have bound it, and that means I'm the person who can only control that. So that's essentially like how this all kind of works, right?
Yeah. Yes. So it makes taking endless spells a lot less risky. You can take like a purple sun, and you can never have a chance of it coming back against you, which is quite nice.
Yeah. There are some spells that I think are worse bound than just buying the original ones, though. Like Spell Portal, you can't. It doesn't. If you're, let's say, you're playing on the realm that gives it empowered. The bound one doesn't actually have that in its War Scroll. It also lets other non-Seraphon wizards use it. So it's kind of why bother taking something that you can't get empowered? You can't use it just yourself. So there's sometimes spells that you just take normal ones. Like Spell Portal, why pay an extra 10 points when you could invest that 10 points into something else?
So most beneficial from what I've seen is you're looking for that predatory keyword. So if it's predatory, which means it can come back to you and attack you, you want to bound that so you stop it from coming against you. So things like Quicksilver Swords, Purple Sun, Geminids,
Lifeswarm.
Emerald Lifeswarm as well.
Emerald Lifestorm will be good if you had like a block of 40 and you just stuck it straight in the middle. But you can stick it straight in the
Dashing Jaws, they're all look at the keyword or look at the War Scroll where it says predatory. That's kind of what you want to focus on, right?
Because there are a bunch of ones that are immobile and it's useless to pay for the bound points for them. So just take the normal ones. Like Palisade and the Shackles.
Shackles,
Yeah.
Cool.
Tailwind.
So you're going to get yourself some bound endless spells. You're going to get yourself a Realm Shaper terrain piece that may or may not be as effective for people. You can choose. It's a great looking piece nonetheless.
Yeah, put it on your display board if you're not going to use it. It looks great.
Yeah.
Do I get anything else?
Well, you get Contemplations of the Ancient Ones, which is kind of tying into that adaptability, which is great. So at the end of the hero phase, basically one of your Slann can change out his spell that he currently has for another spell in the spell lore. So, and all of the Slann spells are very utility based. So again, it's adaptability. You come across an army, in your first turn you're stuck with a spell that you chose, but then turns after that you're going to be able to change it up, which is quite nice. And the other thing is the constellations, if someone else wants to cover that.
The constellations, so like you can give a hero, pretty sure you can give a hero like +1 to like its run and charge rolls for that hero phase. And obviously what I like is you can change them per hero phase. So like, I made my charges my turn and did some damage. Okay, this guy's spell heavy. I'm going to change it back to +1 to cast and dispel and unbind, which is good because since as Seraphon's always had global unbinding, which is very, very disgusting for other people who go up against it who have spell orientated. So I don't obviously need to run my Slann up 30 inches away to try and dispel. It also has like what was it called? The Great Drake, which is add 1 to its weapons characteristics. So if you take like a Carnosaur who, as I said earlier, can punch above its weight, you can do a lot more damage when they go through if they hit something. Obviously you want to try and kill it. I think that's all of them.
And
just to add quick. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go on, you please.
I was going to say the +1 to run and charge is army wide, not just one.
Army wide. Sorry. Yeah, army wide.
So good.
All right, and the final thing I want to talk about, we've kind of danced around a little bit, but we haven't actually nailed down, is we've got this thing called the Starborn, and we've got this thing called the Coalesced. So most armies, if you are brand new to Age of Sigmar, you have this thing called a sub-allegiance. So you have this Seraphon, and then you have something that sits under it. So you almost get to customize your force a little bit more. If you're coming from another army, Kharadron Overlords have barracks. Daughters of Cain have temples. Stormcast have chambers. But this is a way to kind of customize your force a little bit more. And we talked a little bit about the narrative. We talked about we have this very much these Seraphon that are now living in the mortal realms and kind of making jungles, but then you've still got these hosts of Azir, the more celestial beings, and there's a way you can create that as a force. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
So what is this thing called Starborn and Coalesced?
I'll go on the Starborn since I've been using them a lot. They're the more Stardusty / gets a teleport once a end of movement phase, as well as they are reduced to compared to the old book summoning, because obviously they get your D3 and you can sacrifice only one spell, but they also always have that bravery of 10 like we used to have. which was real good back in the old, because like a unit of 10 skinks, you maybe killed 5 of them on a maybe on a 6 up they run. They don't care unless you roll real badly and they have modifiers to your bravery.
So the Starborn are the more spirit, the more celestial beings, the ones that are close to
the Stardust.
Call them Stardust. I think of the circus. I think of a wrestler called Cody Rhodes who was named as Stardust, but they're the more the less kind of in the mortal realms. They come from the sky. Be summoning. They're going to be a more demony kind of if you want to put it that way.
I'd say it's more magic orientated as well. If you want to take the Starborn,
magic orientated, summoning, higher bravery characteristics.
Yeah.
The teleport as well, those type of things.
Yeah.
And then you got the other side, which is
the Coalesced.
And what's that all about? Ewart.
Oh, you want me to take this one? All right. Coalesced. So if you call the Starborn sort of like fresh star children, Coalesced have been in the mortal realms for a while, and they've become more physical, and they're taking more attributes of old Lizardmen. And also, interestingly, they take a little bit of the attributes from the realm, which is really cool, like hobby opportunities there. They mentioned in the book, I think, like Lizardmen in the realm of fire for long enough start to like have like larvae sort of scales and stuff, and like kind of have the magic of the realm infused in them, which is really cool. Like if you're looking for hobby opportunities. So Coalesced, they don't get the leadership 10, unfortunately. So they're back down to their normal leaderships, which is like 6 for Skinks, 8 for Saurus, around there. However, they never suffer modifiers to their bravery. And just so people don't get confused with this, that doesn't mean if you lose 20 Skinks, you don't suffer negative 20 to your bravery roll. That's not what that means, because it's not modifying your bravery characteristic. It's a dice roll. So just to clarify that for people out there. So it means like Nighthorn and armies like that can't give you negative bravery for being scary ghosts. Blizzardmen basically just don't care, but you will be taking on your base bravery. The downside to that is if you take a 40-man unit of Skinks, you don't get the +4 bravery for every 10 molds in the unit as well. So Coalesce sort of balances out a little bit in their other ability, which is -1 damage from attacks coming at them, which is quite good. So damage 2 goes to damage 1, etc. Things that are already damage 1 stay at damage 1. And that kind of, I feel, balances out the low bravery. When you have a big unit of Skinks and you're getting attacked with, like, say, Ogres, is really good against Ogres because most attacks in the Ogre army are damage 2, so they become damage 1. And so your 40-man unit of Skinks doesn't lose 30 Skinks, they lose 15 Skinks, and it kind of balances out in the end. What else do they do? +1 attacks to all Jaws weapons. Now, this one's important, and you need to make sure you're looking at your war scrolls because most things in the Lizardman army have a Jaws attack, and they're the ones you want to be taking in a Coalesced army. There's a few things that don't. Obviously, Skinks aren't really bitey because they're small little dudes, but all the big dinosaurs have Jaws attacks now. Even a Stegodon, which feels weird because it should be like a herbivore, but it still bites people. And the last thing they get is this one's sort of neat. It hasn't really like helped me too much in the game yet, but in your territory, when you choose the starting territory, a bunch of the terrain is basically owned by the Seraphon, and your opponent can't use the magical abilities on it. So in your territory, any of the mystical, what's the spellcasting? Arcane, damned,
sinister.
And sinister and deadly only happen to your opponent, and all the good ones only happen to you in your territory. It's so like I said, it's cool. It hasn't helped me too much, but it's cool and it feels good.
And saying that though, like if imagine like what's the gnaw holes that gives -1 to +1 to cast and plus
that's arcane
and
deadly.
They don't benefit from it. If they, because obviously they always put in gnaw holes, they can't benefit from it, and you don't get affected by running over it.
Yeah,
because it's deadly rules as well. Nice. Also, what would be good if I'm not saying you should take this one. What is it called? The big temple host, where the whole terrain board wide, it's all friendly to you, and your enemy can't use it. And it's not friendly to your enemy.
The really big battalion.
The really big battalion.
Almost
if you summon. I won't lure it.
Don't ruin Christmas just yet. We're going to talk about units. We're going to talk about battalions. We're going to talk about all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But to summarize all of this, if you're thinking about your army, you're thinking about, and this is very simplistic, don't at me at this, but if you're thinking about this, and Jared Hayes in the chat's kind of nailed this, the Starborn are the demons, you know, they're the celestial beings, they're the spirits, they're the magical embodiment of Azir. That's what they are. And they're rewarded for it. They're high bravery, they've got better magic, they've got teleporting and summoning. On the other side, you've got the Seraphon that are more flesh and bone and blood that are in the mortal realms, and they're probably more of the carnivorous lizard man, feral Seraphon that you may have known back from Warhammer Fantasy, or who are more ingrained in the mortal realms, and they're rewarded for things like combat prowess and damage potential. There's probably the two ways of thinking about it, and then what happens is you get these things that then kind of go under it. And there are 4 different particular builds. You've got this thing called the Dracothian's Tail. So this is like the next version of Sub-Allegiance, right? So it's almost like, cool, I'm going to pick a Coalesced, or I'm going to pick a the other one that I've just forgotten the name of. It just
Starborn.
Oh, Starborn, thank you. And then you've got these 4 different ones. You know, you've got the Dracothian's Tail. You've got the Fangs of Sotek, and we'll talk a little bit about them. But at a very high level, what are these 2 locked into? So are these 4 locked into the Starborn and the Coalesced, or can I take all 4 of these, whichever side I take?
No, only the Starborn can only take Draconithon's Tail and the Fangs of Sotek.
Yeah.
And the other one, obviously, the other 2, which is, what were they called again?
Portal's
Claw and...
I'll pull them up in a second. So okay, so you're going to go with Starborn. So let's say you've made the choice of Starborn, and I'm making this sound complicated because when we kind of get to the unit choices, it'll all start making sense. So I like the idea of my star space lizards, or my dreams, or my celestial beings of Azir, whatever your narrative and however you want to go with. I've got 2 options. One is the Dracothian's Tail. The second one is the Fangs of Sotek. At a very high level, what is the Dracothian's Tail? What am I going to get for that? So I can see that instead of setting up a friendly Dracothian's Tail on the battlefield, I can place it on one side of the table and say it's waiting. I can set a unit in, 1 unit in reserve for each Dracothian Tail you have on the table. So basically, I put down a unit that I can put 1 on the reserve. 1 reserve, 1 reserve. So I can put on a whole bunch of dudes on reserve. What's the...
I can add more to this,
Please,
so,
There's a lot, by the way. That's just one of them, but yes.
It's an interesting one that I haven't played around too much with. I like to think of as it's either big brain plays or little brain plays in the way you use the reserve thing, because you could build an army to Alpha Strike with this sub-allegiance by basically, because it's at the end of the moon phase, you can end of the moon phase teleport your Slann up to the enemy's army and then drop a whole bunch of units out in front of him and try and go for an Alpha Strike. Or you can play it sort of like more of a chess match where you're holding things in reserve, your opponent knows things are in reserve, and then you're trying to like force him to commit to something and then drop in reserve stuff somewhere else. And you play like a bit of a back and forth. So there's 2 ways to sort of like play this army, I see. However, the downside is if you're taking a Slann General, you're locked into a command trait, which is there on the page, an extra spell, and you get to reroll 1 casting, Dispelling, Unbind, and you're locked into a relic as well. And neither of these things are bad, but if you want to take your own relics and command traits, you have to not go one of the sub-allegiances.
And the artifact is on a 1. So when the Slann dies for the first time, you roll the dice on a 1, 2, or 3. It is slain, and then on a 4, 5, or 6, it's not slain. So your Slann is back to all fully healed. So there's no wounds taken, which is pretty powerful. You
said there were only 2 choices of the Starborn. Technically, there's 3. You can just choose to stay Starborn and not go Tail or Sotek. The other
so this is optional. So it's not like you're forced to take Dracothian's Tail. It's an option. So this is, but as you pointed out, if I take Dracothian's Tail or Fangs of Sotek, my artifact is chosen for me. My command trait is chosen for me. So
luckily, with the command trait, you're only locked into it if the Slann is your general. You can pick a Saurus as your general, and then you can take whatever command trait you want.
Yeah,
good. So you can build around that a bit.
Dreamer, anything you want to add to Dracothian's Tale, or do we want to jump over to the other side?
Yeah, we'll jump over to the Fangs. So that's pretty much what I was going to say.
So we've got the Fangs of Sotek, which is the other side. So talk to me.
So this is more of a one where you want to take probably more skinks heavy, because its command ability is based around taking a lot of skinks. That either being chameleon skinks, which is your deep striking, cheeky little boys that like to appear and disappear at will, or like obviously you would want to take blocks of 40 because they get real good effect with this command ability, as well as you would obviously take more saurus, so like as well, like you want a saurus general because the general command trait is for it, which you can get extra command points from on a 3-up, as well as I'm not sure about the Serpent God Dagger artifact itself, but if you can get something with it, it would be really good if you kill someone like Nagash.
If you hit Nagash with it.
Yeah, if you hit Nagash, you get a 5-up. So what it does is you attack someone, you cause a wound, they can't save it, they don't die, but after that, at the end of any phase, if you hit it on a 5-up, that guy is just gone. It's literally a 1 dice roll 5-up purple sun in a sense. It just disappears. They don't get a save. The only thing is, I still need clarification on what it does to a bulk unit. That's the only thing, because it just says enemy model. Does that just mean one model is saying? That's the only.
Yeah. So if they're one wound thing, it's never going to do anything.
Yeah. So you want you want something that's big, and try and see if you can delete that unit, delete that one model.
Yeah.
The command ability, I do really like it because it has changed from what it says on the book that you only can do it to a unit that has been charged. I'm pretty sure. You pretty much get.
They changed it a little bit because it's broken in this.
Yeah, well, because it's broken. They changed it so a unit that has been charged, they get to shoot, and on a 4-up they get to run away, which is good for skink. That's why if you take skinks, unless they're locked into combat like on 3 or 4 or on all sides, even then they still get to shoot. But if they get that 4-up retreat, that you literally retreat just outside or too far for them to try and hit you, which means you can save your skinks from being wiped out or given a heavy blow. And there's things that you can buff with a certain skink unit, which I'll elaborate when we get into the War Scrolls later, which can make that one unit really, really good. I think that's
cool. All right, so there are 2 options when it comes to the Starborn. Obviously, we've got a third one, which is not taking either of these. And then on the other side of the fence, when we start going to the Coalesced, we've got 2. Yeah, go on.
I want to add to the things of Sotek as well. My overall summary, this one is called board control, because you're taking a lot of skinks, and the +3 movement in the first battle round means you're basically just like spreading out everywhere very quickly.
Yeah.
So I call this one the board control army.
Oh, and what I forgot is obviously you get your extra 3 inches for the first battle round with all your skink units.
Yeah.
Which is real good because skinks are probably one of the fastest battle line units for their point cost.
And just remember that that's the skink keyword, so it applies to anything like stegodons and salamanders and everything. So it's a very army-wide buff for +3 movement.
Yeah.
So the common theme I'm hearing right now is from the Starborn that the Dracothian's Tale is probably a little bit more suited towards the Slan, and the Fangs of Sotek is a little bit more suited to skinks. Doesn't mean that you're forced down that particular route, but you can start to see some of the themes. So when we start getting to the list building in a minute, you'll start to see, well, if I'm thinking about a Fangs of Sotek and I'm getting rewarded for, X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to want to build around it. And that's how we're going to start thinking about when we start building a list, thinking about some of these recurring themes around, well, I like the idea of, retreating skinks and being able to shoot on the charge. Cool. Well, I'm going to build around that idea.
Yeah.
So the other side of the fence is the Coalesced, and the first one we've got here is the Coattail's Claw. Now, that's going to give you a bunch of benefits. This is the other side. So this is not the Starborn. This is the Coalesced. A couple of things you're going to get, and something that people are really loving, is that you get to add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by friendly the Coattail Claw's saurus. If they've made a charge in that same turn. There's a whole bunch of artifacts and cool stuff. I'll leave it to the SMEs here. Thoughts around this particular build?
I can take this one. This is the Saurus army, which everyone loves. Saurus. It's all about making your saurus as optimal as possible. So the +1 hit on charge is quite nice because saurus, I'm pretty sure, hit on 4s with both the weapons normally.
Yeah.
And you bring it down to 3s, which is quite nice. The command ability is, when I first saw the command ability, I was iffy about it. The main thing is the 24-inch range to give out the +1 for charging bonus again. Note that it is only for the +1 to hit bonus from charging, so you don't suffer any of the negatives for charging. Like if you're in terrain, you still get the benefit of cover. I thought they missed a trick there, though. It would have been cool if it was just counted as charging for like Saurus Knights and stuff like that. Would have been cool. The command trait, also, once again, you put on your general that's going to be giving out those command abilities, and then you get a refund on the 4+ when you use that command point. So you're just going to hand out so many command abilities. And the artifact of power is surprisingly good for one of the ones that like locks you in. You put on one of your characters with a lot of attacks with his weapon. I put on a Sunblood. I think it's quite good there. And yeah, you're just dealing out some mortal wounds to things. For hitting on a 6 and then this additional normal damage. I call it the mini Sword of Judgment.
Dreamer, you don't anything you want to add to that one?
I haven't really used this one. I'm more of the magic using, but I do find that using it is fun to using a lot of Saurus, because obviously you can add 1, maybe possibly even add 2 if you do other little shenanigans into your Saurus blocker warrior, because they can be a real good block fighting force, especially when you take the spears with that 2-inch range, because they are 32 mil, so you do need that range.
Yep.
But apart from that, he's pretty much covered everything.
Yep. So this is again, we could go back to the recurring themes. We've had Slan, we've had Skink. This is now certainly towards the Saurus. Again, not saying you can't take them, but we're starting to see a pattern that is benefiting more Saurus.
And just for new people again, the Saurus keyword applies to anything with a Saurus riding it as well. So this is your Carnosaurs and your cold ones. I think if you're going to take Carnosaurs, I think this is slightly better than the next one. When we come around to the next one, I think Carnosaurs are better here.
Are we ready to move to the next one?
Yeah.
All right, and the last one here is the Thunder Lizards. Now, I wonder what reoccurring theme the Thunder Lizards might be about.
There's only one thing left out of the things you mentioned. We got spellcasters, skinks,
your big dinos.
Jurassic Park.
This is the one that appeals to me. It's about all the monsters. It's about just getting in there and doing what it says on the box.
So, from what I know, is this is the one where you take, obviously, like, you take your Carnosaurs, you take your Stegodons, you take your Bastillodons, you take maybe Troglodons as well, if you like them.
Your Dreadsaurians.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Your Dreadsaurians. Yeah. So, just to elaborate, Dreadsaurian currently now is the biggest wounds monster in the game now at 35.
I believe the corn demon dragon thing.
It's now beaten the. It's now beaten the. And now with this, if you take it with this one, you now have 37 wound monster to try and not get killed. Well, have to face against, because it's at the first thing it says add two to the wounds characteristics of all Thunder Lizard monsters, which I think is good. So like you have it, your general has an extra 2 wounds if you take him as a Saurus, Old Blood, or Scar Veteran on a Carnosaur.
So a Dreadsaurian, for example, goes to 37 wounds.
Yeah.
For one model.
Yeah, for one model.
Pretty crazy when you think about that, guys. 2 additional wounds on each of your monsters. And then what will come later on, which is then what unlocks with like what becomes battle line, then that just makes it even sexier. So sorry, keep going.
So like all your battle line heroes, monsters are now things. So like your Stegodons are all your battle line now. So you don't have to take skinks if you don't have many skinks. And you just and this is a list that you don't need to take many models if you're not a fan of. So like you can just take lots of Stegodons. You can take Stegodons. I think if I'm wrong, Stegodons are the only unit that can be battle line.
We'll get to that now. I'm pretty sure it is, but we'll get to the battle line in a minute.
But doesn't mention it on the page, but Stegodon become battle line in Thunder.
Yeah. As well as the command ability, I think is pretty good if you take a more shooting orientated, because you take the Stegodons with the bows, or if you're one of those guys who likes to get right up close and personal, you take the Sunfire Throwers, which is a mortal wounding shooting at 8-inch range. What this command ability does is just gives you, for a command point, you get to shoot again. So obviously, if you have 2 Battletons, you can shoot them twice a turn. If you have Stegodons, you can shoot them twice a turn. Or if you, depending on what size list, you can try and even shoot 4 times a turn with everything you have if you take 2 of each monster, so to speak.
Just to clarify there, you cannot shoot again with Stegodons. It's only the Battleton. You can activate an engine again,
sorry.
or shoot with Battleton.
Oh, sorry, that's my bad. It's
not that good, but yes, it is amazing.
Shooting. Sorry, if you take 4 Battletons somehow.
There is an artifact as well. It's going to let you do some shooting, so that's where.
The artifact. I do find the artifact is pretty good if you put that on a Carnosaur, because obviously its big attack is this giant bite, which does a lot of damage. I think 5 apiece per hit.
To start with.
Yeah, as well as the command ability. This command in the your shooting phase, pick 1 enemy unit at visible to roll on dice on a 1. Doesn't do anything, can't be used again. 2 to 3, nothing happens. 4 to 5, this suffers a D3. On a 6, it does D6. I don't say it's the greatest one, but it's just to try and get some mortal wounds into something that might be more durable than anything in combat that you want to charge into and try and kill. So I'm not a big user of these, so I haven't really read into them. I'm more of the magic orientated.
That's fine.
Anyway.
Look, it is what it says on the book. It's all about the monsters. It's about getting in there. It's going to rip in face. You're building around that as opposed to the other builds. So, anything you want to add before we start getting into some list tech?
So the one I want to add to this one is the command ability to use the Engine of the Gods. Again, is quite important in this army because I have played this one. It's really, the engine is actually quite useful because what the engine does is it has if you roll the right dice, has the ability to heal Seraphon units nearby, which is mostly for your big dice. And being able to use it again, you could be looking at 2d3 wounds back per turn on your big dinos.
Yeah, that actually would be pretty good.
Adds to the durability quite a bit.
Mm.
Cool, that's it.
That's about it.
Cool. So, all right. So now that we've built out, we've got an idea, at least, or like, I'm getting a good understanding of what I like the idea of, whether it's going to be slan, whether it's magic, whether it's combat, whether it's, Carnosaur, there's something in there that might be interesting to me. I want to start building a list around it. And most armies will build a list around their heroes. It's probably at least the fundamental start of an army. And you guys have some amazing options. So what I might get you guys to do is maybe one at a time throw up what might be a good hero choice and why. And you guys have a great bunch. You've got the Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur. You've got the Saurus Scar Veteran on Carnosaur. You've got a Skink Oracle on Troglodon. You've got the Stegodon on with a Skink Chief. You have, oh my gosh, Lord Crowe, Grippodactyl Chief. Saurus. Like you guys have more leader choices than I have underpants in my drawer. Like you guys just off the chart. So maybe first round, like what's a good hero choice? Why? How might I build around it? Like, just give me some ideas. I might throw it over to you first. What's a good hero choice and why?
Ooh. All right. I'm actually going to cheat a bit. I'm going to say 3 at once because I like to call them the Boondock Skinks, and they're the combination of 3 skink heroes, which is just amazing. That's the Skink Priest, the Skink Star Priest, and the Skink Chief on Stegodon. These 3 together, basically buffing units, especially units of skinks, is just insane synergy. And so I like to bundle them together, and almost every time I take one of them, I end up taking the other 2. So I always bundle these 3 together. So just like the nice little skink command group of those 3. So what do? The Chief on Steg buffs skink units to have +1 attack in combat. So they can buff anything that has a skink keyword. That's himself, that's little skink units. It's fantastic. The Skink Priest gives out +1 to hit to skink units and can give them +1 save and things like that. And the Star Priest gives them mortal wounds. And so when you put all these 3 together in almost any list, they just synergize and become amazing. So I'm kind of cheating a bit and bundling them into one. But that's always a good place to start on a list, is like those 3 together. And I'll pass the next pick over to Cameron, and I probably took some good picks.
Just before I go to Cameron, so if I was going to take that holy trinity of skinks, is that going to be in all 4 of those builds that we just spoken about, or is it in a more centric skink build?
You could almost put it in any of
the trinity.
The purpose of, like, if you're taking all skink build, it's pretty much like 100% you've got to have it in there. But even in like a Saurus army, the Star Priest still helps a lot in that. And the Skink Chief on Stegodon is himself power to be reckoned with. And so, and the Skink Priest can buff him. So they can buff amongst themselves, they can buff the Saurus, they can still do plenty of stuff in almost any army.
Okay, so it's a worthy combination regardless of the build. If you are going with Skinks, it's definitely something that you'd probably want to take.
Yeah, I'd consider it in any of the armies mentioned, and then specifically like a Skink army, 100%.
Cool. Dreamer, what do you got for me?
I'll just pick the one just to make it easy. I think personally, if you go for a pure magic orientated, or I'll say two. I'll say try and go with both the Slans, the Chairborn heroes. Yeah. Mainly because one, Crowe has four disgusting spells that he can take. One that also the Slan has is that unlimited range Comet's Call spell, which can do a lot, which is real good for sniping those backline heroes as well, because it casts on a 7, does D3 enemies, but if you cast it on a 10, it's D6 enemies, and it just does D3 mortal wounds depending on what you roll on to that many heroes.
And like for me as an opponent, if you were to roll that twice in a game, you could essentially delete basically all of my little heroes.
Like your wizard, like your wizards and whatnot.
Every wizard, you'll pop every little buff character out there. Obviously, you got to get some good rolls to get 2 10+s, and then get to do up to 6 damage, or 5 damage. But still, like that's a pretty scary prospect from 2 casts in the game.
As well as Crowe's other spell, which is one that he can cast 3 times, which is the Celestial Deliverance spell. I know it's short range, but you can buff it up to maybe 22 inches. But you can even buff that in further when you use the Arcane Vessel treatment, which is casting when you cast it from, like, say you're outside 30 inches of a wizard, but you have a Skink Priest in front of him. Let's say in the maximum, which is wholly within 12. So you cast it, he can't dispel it. He then casts it. The spell then is ranged from the Skink Priest instead, or if you have a Troglodon, he can be right up in the enemy's face, and the spell just comes straight into you. So you can buff out the ranges from that, and that's a real good spell that on a 2-up it does D3 mortal wounds, unless you're a Chaos Demon, where it does on a 2-up straight 3 mortal wounds, which if you're versing a very demon-oriented army, that will just destroy weak heroes and whatnot. The Slan... Oh, sorry.
No, please continue. I was going to ask you about the Slan.
Yeah, the Slan is he's like a watered down version of Crowe. He's been given the Comet's Call, so he can also do it if you don't want to take Crowe. He also has Arcane Vessel, and he can also take a spell like, let's say, I don't want to elaborate until we get into that part, the spell laws and whatnot, but he can take, if you take Jaconathan's Tale with the Starborn, he can take 2 spells and they can be very manageable because he can change one of them and whatnot. He's also a very good, he can give, they both have a general's trait which gives +1 to save against shooting, which I think is real good if you want to keep durability against shooting armies.
And the fly keyword as well, just very important.
Fly keyword as well, so they can be cheeky. So not that you could fit a Dreadsaurian, I remember you could previously, you could have a flying Dreadsaurian. Flying Dreadsaurian.
I remember Chris Tott used to make a flying Dreadsaurian. Luckily, it only had 2 words at the time, but
flying Dreadsaurian with 37, if you can get it.
What I want to ask though is, if I was starting up my army, or I'm making a competitive army, doesn't really matter, and am I taking both Lord Crowe and am I taking a Slan Star Master? Or what might guide my decision by going with Crowe versus a Slan Master if I'm only going to take the one?
From what I've been testing, as well as when I've been taking a Slan and stuff, I use the Slan mainly to try and buff Crowe, so he becomes very hard to dispel, because my list is, I gave him the buff to have +1 to cast, so I managed to buff it up to +4. So imagine, which gives my Comet's Call a bigger chance to get over 10, which makes it a D6 enemies, which is a very, as we went on before, a very scary spell to try and get hit with, as well as being able to try and cast other endless spells, which are very hard, which would be very hard to cast, like 8 a roll of an 8 is a very, like Purple Sun, is very kind of hard to try and cast sometimes.
So you're taking both. Are you saying to take both?
If you want to go pure magic orientated, I would say take both. If you're not going into full magic, because they are a bit of points each. Obviously, Croak's like 320, Slander's 260. I'm pretty sure still.
270 currently.
270. Yeah, 270. You can obviously, if you just take the Sun, you can invest points into like more Salamanders or something similar to that, more Skinks and stuff, more battle line to protect your Slan.
So just before I ask you and his opinion on that, so you're saying that obviously the combination of both of them is great in a magic orientated army.
Yeah.
If I was going to be more about the monsters or more about the Skinks or something, and I didn't want to invest as many points into 2 heroes, you're saying that maybe the Slan Star Priest might be a better choice because you get a bit more combination.
Yeah, just a pretty much
customization.
Yeah, while still not losing the global unbinds and whatnot.
Yeah, fair enough. No, and it's good to know because not everyone wants to go the magical supremacy route.
Yeah.
And 600 odd points is a lot for 2 characters.
Yeah.
So just understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a big investment. So you obviously want to try and be able to kill a lot of stuff within that first hero phase you have.
Yeah, fair. And you any thoughts around the Slans, our flying chair people?
I guess to distill the point is, I would take Croak if you're looking to have a spell army which is going to try and murder everybody, and I would take a Slan as a support character. That's what a Slan does, it's just a regular one. He's not going to be doing too much killing. He's more about supporting your army.
And is the Slan fundamental the element of the summoning of troops in the Starborn?
Yes, he's the main linchpin of the summoning. So if you're taking a Starborn army and you want to do something, you're going to need a Slan in there. So Croak or the normal or both.
The chat's telling me that as sexy as a Dreadsaurian coming on for free is, it's incredibly hard to do. So don't try it.
You have to get like optimal rolls and
10 summoning points. 10 summoning points a turn, it's 50, and you get it turn 5?
yeah. That's not really going to happen.
And how does the summoning points point by? Did we talk about the summoning points? Like how
we didn't talk about how you get them. We can if you want.
Let's talk about what. Now we're talking about Slans. We might as well just quickly go over it.
Okay. So do you want to cover this, Cameron? Seems like you've been doing it more.
So pretty much at the start of your hero phase, you get D3 summoning points if your general is a Slan or a Starseer. And then you get an extra D3 if you have 1 or more. I don't know why you would take more than 1 Astro Bearer, though. Saurus Astrolith Bearer on the battlefield. In addition, you can, instead of casting your first spell with your Slan, you can sacrifice that for D3 summoning points. So the Slan is definitely more orientated to support. Because obviously the other 2 spells you might take if you're taking Starborn, because you get that extra spell, is towards those other 2 spells you've chosen. So then you might get 9 summoning points pretty much a turn at max. I'm not saying it's likely because it's obviously D3, not how it used to be as just straight 3 summoning points.
Can I correct you a little bit?
Yes, sorry.
So each Slan can trade in their first spell for D3. Also oracles, so Troglodons can as well. So you can build a ridiculous army that's like 3 Slans, 3 Troglodons, and try and get a ridiculous amount of something. I don't think it's going to be a good army, but if you want to go that route, you sure can.
Yeah.
Hashtag it's your hobby.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, cool. No, great. So we talked about the Slans. We've talked about the difference between Croak and the regular Slan. Obviously, you got the benefits of customization of the Slan as well through spell choicing and artifacts and all that great stuff. While Croak has a little bit more restrictions. What about some of the other hero choices? Things like maybe the sauruses, or maybe one that kind of caught my interest that I don't remember in the old book was the Ripidactyl Chief. Is that a new hero choice?
Yeah, so they brought back the Skink Chiefs on the mounts. Thank God. The Ripper Chief and the Pterodon Chief. So the Ripper Chief, I don't really look at building an entire army around him. But if you're looking at taking a big unit Ripidactyls, if you really like Ripidactyls, I would chuck one of him in for sure. I'll come back to Ripidactyls later because I think they're secretly one of the best units in the book, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah, we'll talk units after. Let's stick to heroes for now.
Yeah. Another hero you definitely look at putting around if you want the Carnosaur is building that Old Blood on Carnosaur. He's definitely a thing you build an entire army around. You just commit to Saurus, and if you take him plus a Skyvener and a Carnosaur, they work well together with their command abilities swapping over. So that's another way you can build. So that's building if you want to just go eat things with dinosaurs, that's the sort of hero you focus on to start with.
So the other Skink chief I think is actually probably pretty good is obviously the Pterodon chief, because if you base around him, you'll just mass out the Pterodons because his command ability where when a unit does its flyover, it changes it from a 4 up to a 2 up. I won't fully alliterate until we actually go to the units on that, but
I think you're right.
It's a real good command ability for the unit that it buffs.
So basically, you might not be the first leader choice, but as you start building your list and you start thinking about Ripidactyls and Pterodons, and you're like, oh, I'm thinking about taking one of those units, you might want to now add on this to support the benefits of a Ripidactyl or a Pterodon.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned how the heroes, so how you start an army. With my Lizardman list, I've started them many different ways. You can start with a battalion, you can start with one of the sub-factions, you can start with a hero. I find there's lots of good foundational points to start building an army out of with Lizardman. There's not a specific thing.
No, and you're 100% right. You might pick a character to start with, and then you build around it with, and you see what battalion you might like, or you might go to a battalion and start from the start. I guess we're all different in the way we want to get to that point.
If you want to talk about beginners, I'd probably start with one of the sub-factions, like the Caller's Claw or the Thunder Lizard or the Fangs. I'd probably go that way to start with, is to pick your foundation.
Any other heroes that we want to call out? Because there is a lot of heroes, and maybe some of them aren't worth talking about. Dreamer, anything you want to call out here?
I would say probably the Star Priest as well, because he has a very good buff that he can give to, say, a bulk unit of 40 Skinks, which is 6s to wound, do an mortal wound, which can correlate to the Skink's ability the command ability where they can shoot after an enemy is charged into them. So imagine you've buffed that unit, they shot, then you've had your turn, and then when they have charged into that block of 40, you spend a command point, they get to shoot again just to try and see if they can max output those mortal wounds to possibly even kill a hero or something like that.
Yeah, he was part of my holy trinity of Skinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Other heroes, a lot of the Saurus heroes are just there for support, and they're not build an entire army around, like the Sunblood and the Old Blood and Foot and things like that. They're good heroes, but they're the start of an army sort of thing.
Yeah.
But would you take them if you were building a Saurus army? Because it's not about just starting the army. It's just thinking about.
Yeah, if you're doing a full Saurus strategy, I've definitely put the other ones in my list.
Yeah, the Old Blood and Sunblood have some pretty good buffs, like +1 to wound to for a unit that's targeting that person. So +1 to wound, so you'll be hitting on, if you take clubs, you'll be hitting on 2s, spears, 3s, which is a pretty good buff.
The other Skink character, the Starseer, the Skink on the chair, the mini Slan.
I've been meaning to ask about that, and I can see the chat. The chat's crying for our little chair guy.
The other chairborn.
Starseer.
I do like some of his stuff, but it can be hit and miss. I've subbed him in and out of my magic list that I've been doing just to see what I can do, because I don't use him that much. I do like if a unit is outside of 12 for charge phase, and the charge phase, he can point to a unit, say that it's a block of 40 warriors or a Dread Saurian, they get to do a 3d6 charge. So that just buffs the chance of it doing a 12-inch charge.
Most importantly, they can pick a charge target within 18 inches.
I was going to ask you, is it the same rules like the Prosecutor that allows you to do an 18-inch charge as opposed to a 12?
So here's my fourth Skink brother. I don't put him in my list as much as the Holy Trinity, but he is also quite good because his built-in spell is +1 save to a friendly Seraphon unit or -1 save to an enemy unit, which can be quite amazing. But I don't find him in my list as much as the others.
Yeah.
He's more of I chuck him in the Saurus support to help Saurus get to combat. But not a whole lot the other times.
Plus, he does have a command point generator on a 4-up as well.
A lot of Skink characters do. It's so good.
Yeah.
Another unit that looks like it's had a change in between books is the Engine of the Gods that now can have a hero on it. Is it an option or is it? It's optional, right?
Already a hero.
Yeah. It was like a weird one, right?
Oh, do you mean the Stegodon with the Skink Chief, or just the Engine of the Gods? Because you can have a Stegodon with the Skink Chief.
Let's do both. Let's do both. I was more referring specifically to the Engine of the Gods.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being a hero, but maybe I'm not.
It was before.
Okay,
it definitely was.
Yeah. Well, the Engine of Gods, I think, did take a big hit to its abilities and stuff because you only get 2d6 unless you have a Slan there, which you get 3d6 instead of how previously you had 3d6. But then if a Slan was there, you get an extra dice, and then you can choose between the 4 dice.
Yeah, it had more manipulation.
Yeah, which has made the nice little 18 ability, which is the I'm just going to say the previous one. I can't remember. I think it's pretty much the same. Yeah, where you get double move characteristic, double weapon characteristic. So imagine if you had like a I'm just going to go Dread Soaring because you've been loving that model. With a double move characteristic, double weapons characteristic, that could probably kill 2 whole units. 2 blocks of 40 pretty easily with the amount of damage it could do.
I've only rolled that once with the old book at Anzac Cup, and that was ridiculous when it happened.
I managed to roll that on the OBR. I almost killed Nagash with 2 Salamanders, I think, versus old book at CanCon. Yeah. Nice. Which made his Nagash run away.
So with the new engine, I actually prefer it without the Slan because of the less manipulation in the dice roll. I think it's better just by itself because you're more likely to get the healing result. And you're more likely to get the mortal wound shooting result, which are the 2 ones you want.
I do wish it if I wanted to, like, this is probably me being whiny, but I wish it had like the healing would also bring back models as well.
Well, that would be nice.
Like you roll D3 and if there's a temple guard, it brings back 1, so to speak.
I'll pick up the after this video is over. I'll pick up the phone and I'll tell them to rewrite the scroll. I like it.
So like it'll be your own little portable life, Emerald Life Swarm.
and what I'm being told as well is that no matter how many engines that you take, you can only use the ability once. So.
Correct,
yeah. So if you were going to take one, you probably only want 1, or you're paying for redundancy.
So I think it's best, like I said, in the big monster army without a Slan. So it's just healing your other monsters, and that's its main job. It's just a backline support. It's not bad in combat, so you can also do a little bit of stuff in combat. If you want to talk about the other one, which is Skink Chief on Steg, I already mentioned it because it's in my Holy Trinity. I can go into a long talk about this fella. He is basically probably the best hero in the book, in my opinion, because he is giving out a support command ability. He's shooting with his bow or sunfire throwers, and if you give him the command ability and relics and stuff, he's better in combat than the Carnosaur character. So he's doing everything. He's fantastic. If you want to talk about specifics, because if we talk about the Steg War Scroll, they have an ability where at the start of combat, they pick an enemy unit they're in combat with. It has to have 5 models or less, so it can't be a big bulk unit. And basically, he points his head towards that unit, and then you get +1 save against that unit. So the Steg becomes more durable than a Carnosaur very quickly in combat. It makes sense, like a little lore thing as well. Like if he's getting surrounded, he can't use it, which is cool. Like I like the way they implemented the rule, as opposed to just the 3+ save.
And then add the fact that that's really cool. That's really cool. And then you add the fact that you put it under a Thunder Lizards army, and you get +2 wounds, or like there's some cool stuff that you can start to then bring together as you start to bring those sub-allegiance rules into the list building phase. Any other heroes worth calling out that I've missed, Ewart? I think we've kind of gone through a fair amount. I don't remember talking about the Eternity Warden.
He's just a bodyguard.
He's just a bodyguard. He's the what's the word? The skeletons for he's the skeletons for the necromancer for the Slan.
I think because they gave his same rule to the temple guard now, or the saurus guard, he's kind of irrelevant because you're getting more wounds for taking the saurus guard. So I don't see many people taking Eternity Warden anymore, unfortunately. The Astrolith Bearer is a hero, and he's, like Cameron mentioned, very useful in the summoning list.
Yeah.
I've tried to fit him in my other non-summoning lists, but it doesn't get as much if you're not doing summoning.
Yeah, he's sort of a must if you take a magic because you want that +1 as well.
Yeah. But if you're not taking the magic-orientated army, your points are probably better invested elsewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Cool. Anything else from a hero point of view? I think we've done a pretty robust selection. Given
I think that's fair.
You've probably got as many heroes as Cities of Sigmar and Stormcast, but
not as many as Stormcast. They still do, for sure.
A lot of heroes. So I think, fundamentally, think about the style of army that you want to build around. Maybe pick 1 or 2 hero choices to start. Then you might look at these unit choices and then kind of come back and start looking at buffs or looking at battalions. So let's talk about those units. So we'll talk about battle line first, and then we'll talk about the non-battle lines. So what are your battle line choices? You've got your Saurus warriors. You've got your if you're taking a Thunder Lizard army, you've got your Stegodons, battle line. Your Saurus Guard, your Saurus Knights, your Skinks are all battle line choices. So who wants to talk about Skinks? I think Skinks is probably the most common one. If you had a Seraphon army, you're probably going to you probably already had Skinks.
Yeah.
So let's address the pink elephant in the room, and now let's talk about the cool ones that might be worth investing in now. So Dreamer, tell me about Skinks. Sell to me why I should keep Skinks on the table.
Well, they're pretty much probably your cheapest battle line that you can have, and they're probably probably one you don't have to worry about if you take them in small numbers. Like if you're doing heavy magic, I just use them as a shield to stop people from like Iron Jaws just coming storm rolling straight in and killing everything in its path, because I have had that happen a couple of times when I didn't have as many Skinks. They're cheap. They are low bravery unless you obviously take Starborn, which gives them that 10 bravery. They do have a nice little utility with they can shoot. They have finally given them their clubs that they should have always had to begin with, which surprisingly enough, they actually hit better with their clubs than their bloody blowpipes. They now, instead of how they like, this is just going to be for every unit that had a shield, they did lose their ignore 1 rend. But they did get given a better save, so they have a 5-up save now. So their javelins are all right. Obviously, limited range. I think they're 12-inch, or are they 14? I don't really use them, so.
That's all right. But long story, what I'm hearing is that Skinks are a great cheap battle line option. You can take them in big blocks up to 40, but you can take small units.
Yeah, and they're the easiest thing to summon. So like. You can teleport. Let's say the guys left the objective. You can teleport and just summon 2 units of Skinks and capture objectives pretty easily with them. They can move fast. You're not too worried about them dying because you can just bring them back on for 6 points of summoning for 10. Pretty much, that's about it. You can buff them really well if you taking them in the bigger blocks. They can They can get a lot of attacks. So if you had a block of 40, you get 80 shots with them, which I think is very disgusting for a cheap 50-point unit, 60-point unit. 60, yeah.
60 currently, but like we won't talk too much about points, mostly because the General's Handbook comes out, any time and kind of updates things like that. But value for money, Skinks generally have always been great battle line choices because of so many reasons.
Yeah, the only thing that was sad, but they've obviously put it into a command ability instead, is they did lose their Wary Fighter ability, which was, in the old book, made them one of the best units in the game for battle line.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Which, for those that don't know, is the Wary Fighter. They can charge someone, and then instead of actually fighting, they can just go, I'm going to move 8 inches this way towards an objective and possibly cap it instead of actually fighting.
My heart bleeds for you losing that rule. The amount of times that I had one game where Chris Tott ran 140 to 200 Skinks at me with their bravery 10, and they ran into all of my units that were holding objectives and then just retreated from combat. And then just kept securing objectives by running around me. I have no sympathy for you losing that rule, or at least it being a sub-allegiance rule. But Skinks, generally, value for money, good battle line choice.
Yeah, good battle line.
Moved them to the side because I think what I've really enjoyed about this book is that other units that weren't very good in the old book have now become viable choices. And we're starting to see variants in list building, where previously in the old book, it was like 1 or 2 trick ponies. It was around summoning, there was essentially 2 lists.
Summoning and ball control.
Literally, that was all. So talk to me about another battle line choice and what might now be a viable choice from my selection.
So I'll talk to you about my second favorite battle line choice, because Skinks is still up there. Saurus Knights. Now, these guys got a lot better, and I was already taking them in the previous book because I felt they were pretty decent, but now they are amazing. So a Saurus Knight stat line looks like this. It has 2 attacks for the guy on top, 1 bite attack from the rider, and 2 bite attacks from the mount. So it's 5 attacks on the model. Then if you go Coalesced, of course, it adds +1 attacks to each draw's attack, so it goes up to 7 attacks per model. Which is a lot from a little battle line cavalry dude. Putting out 7 attacks is insane to me. So if you take like a unit of 10 of these, that's 70 attacks coming out. You can put all sorts of buffs on them. They're decent speed now. I think their movement's 9 or 8, because they used to be 7, but they put them up a little bit.
Yeah, movement 8.
Movement 8, yeah. So they're a little bit faster now, so they keep up with Skinks, which is nice. 2 wounds each. They made their save to a 4-up like the Saurus Warriors. So like the old book, with the mention of the old shields, they no longer ignore rend 1, they just gave them +1 save, which is better, like just substantially better.
You get more benefits for your buck instead of just ignoring rend 1.
It's just overall better against everyone, as opposed to being good against like Cadron Overlords specifically, which is what they were before. So these guys are my second favorite battle line choice. If you're going the Saurus route, I think Saurus Warriors are your stay-at-home objective holders, and Saurus Knights are your go out and take the fight to them. And so, Saurus Knights are my second favorite battle line choice for sure.
Yeah, when you start stacking up those jaw bites and the benefits to the jaw bites in the sub-allegiances, for 200 points currently with a block of 10, 70 attacks from 10 models, that's crazy. That's a crazy potential amount of damage. Yeah. And then there are ways to increase the hit and wound and all that good stuff. So all of a sudden, it's a pretty low risk investment for 200 points.
Yeah, they're quite good.
They're very good. Something that's definitely worth reconsidering, because things like the Saurus generally weren't being used. And I haven't in my time seen Saurus Knights being used since Warhammer Fantasy Battles. So definitely worth reinvesting into if you haven't looked at this model before.
I want to mention, if you give them a good combination, there's just a little bit of a tidbit of a battalion. There's a battalion that gives them +3 to charge, and then giving them the 3d6 charge and the +1 to charge from the constellation. These guys can do a very long range charge.
There's cogs in there. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff there.
The musician for the units gives a reroll charge as well. Yeah, it's very reliable.
Damn.
The only flaw I see with them is they don't have any rend. So obviously, if you have like something with a good save, like I know some free cities can have like a 3-up or a 2-up first turn.
They wouldn't give much of an OBR unit.
Yeah, Petrifix Elite.
Just hits a brick wall.
Think about that in your list choice. But then at the same time, if they hit a unit of pink horrors, and we know the pink horrors have a lot of worth value for money, those 70 attacks will probably annihilate those pink horrors down to at least their brims.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other battle line choices we want to talk about?
Saurus Warriors, I'd say, probably. Yeah. I do love the fact they gave them that -1 rend to their club attack, which if you do mechanics around them, you can get it to -2 rend. So, but that's obviously if you don't want to take spears and whatnot. If you don't want to take spears, like all my warriors, I was a fool when I first started. I just gave them all clubs because I just liked them a lot better.
Clubs for your 10-man units. If you go
10-man. But I would say if you know how to do the honeycomb really well, you could probably fully utilize it.
So what was that? Pause. The honeycomb?
Oh, where you can honeycomb is like when you can stack them quickly. I can't probably explain it unless I had the models there. Is when you make it so there's 2 models and one slightly in between, just within an inch range, so you can maximize the amount of attacks you can get within an inch. Because obviously,
32 mil bases, you need to be very specific.
Yeah.
Okay. So thinking about the way that you're positioning almost in like little mini V's, but together.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Like, it's easy for a 32 mil to be outside of range in like a second rank. So positioning and skinks are more forgiving. So just keep in mind positioning with the 32 base.
Yeah, as well as you can probably hit multiple units with a block unit of 40, because obviously they get double the attacks characteristic when they have over 15, 20 models. And you could hit a weak unit and you can hit another weak unit, and you can possibly have enough to hit maybe a hero with that 2-inch reach, and with what neg 1 rend, and you can also buff yourself with a battalion to have neg 1 to the bite as well, which I think is probably with 2 attacks that have neg 1 rend. I think that's bloody disgusting. At least.
All right.
Anything else on the Warriors, do you think?
I'm pretty happy with that. Like, if you go Coalesced, they're putting out 4 attacks each when there's above 15 models. So that's once again a lot of attacks. A lot of the Seraphon units, if you build them right, are just outputting a lot of attacks.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of rend a lot of the time, so OBR can be a problem. But a lot of attacks coming out.
All right, and finally, we're talking about those Stegodons.
We also implemented Saurus Guard.
Huh?
Saurus Guard.
Saurus Guard, Temple Guard.
He wants a Stegodon.
I just want Stegodons. All right, talking Temple Guard, get that over. Let's get out of the way.
The only time you're going to take them is if you really need your Slan to survive. So usually if you're taking like Croque or double Slan, or if you really need your Slan. Otherwise, I've never taken them out of the list because they're pretty much just Slam Guard.
Yeah, I do like how they finally given them 2 wounds like they always needed.
Yeah, finally.
That's the only thing that I like. Like, they've got a good attack, they've got a good save, they got rend. They've just needed an extra wound, because obviously when people tried to take them in the old book, people just mortal wounded them off and they just died.
You just lost 100 points of models for like a couple mortal wounds coming at them. It was terrible.
Yeah, because I think the best example for the old book was when I was playing meeting engagements with Goon Boss, and he just charged old Frost Stonehorns into the snowball attack, which is a 2-up, and he just did 5 mortal wounds straight away, and it just wiped a whole unit of 5 in his arm.
Yeah.
Am I losing it, or where is the Temple Guard on the
Saurus Guard?
Saurus Guard.
We still call them Temple Guard, but they're called Saurus Guard.
Yeah.
Because I'm going, where is Temple Guard? I don't see it. Okay, Saurus Guard is Temple Guard. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Okay,
now we'll talk about it. Let's move along. Let's talk about Stegodon. Forget me Temple Guard. Stegodon.
All right. Stegodons. They're good. That's the bottom line. They're very good. They got shooting. They've got combat. They're durable. I think they're a really good monster. Just at doing a little bit of everything. This comes back to the jack of all trades thing. They're not as good as a Terrorgeist at doing specific things, but a Stegodon has a little bit of everything. You can take 2 different shooting weapons. Yeah, you've got a shooting weapon which is good against hordes. So you pick an enemy unit, and then every model that's within 8 inches, you roll a dice, and a 5-up takes a mortal wound. So you basically wipe out 1/3 of a unit, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the Sky Streak Bow, so that's a long-range, straight 3 damage, like artillery sort of shooting. I usually gravitate towards that one a little bit more, because a lot of the Seraphon units, like we said, have a lot of attacks. So you're not going to have a problem with horde units. You're going to have a problem with like hitting characters down there all the time.
Yeah.
Or big scary things.
Cool, because if I'm going to build a Seraphon army, it's going to be a Thunder Lizard army. So
fair enough.
Sales pitches that I've already bought the Gargants, so sell it to me, because they are very cool.
Yes. They're just good. They have the Skink keyword, so a lot of the synergy with Skinks can affect them, and that's very important. So you can give them like the +1 save, the +1 hit, the extra attacks. There's all sorts of stuff you can do with them.
So straight away, if I like that build, but maybe not necessarily, well, it's only battle line in Thunder Lizard. But if I was going to bring one of those Stegodons into, say, the Fangs of Sotek, because it's the Skink keyword, I could still build around it and get some cool buffs without being Thunder Lizard.
It also can with its armored crest can hit a let's say an under 5 unit with a -1 to its save.
No, it gets +1 save.
Add 1 to the save roll, so like it can be more durable up to if you want to tango with a big hero, you can give 1 to your save roll, so you can, instead of a 4-up, you have a 3-up.
So there's ways to get Stegodons down to a 1+ save and things like that. You can make them very durable.
I'm not meant to touch my face because of COVID, but that was worth a head shake. Like that was all right. All right, no more 1+ saves for me. No more talking about that. Are we happy with our battle line talks, or do we want to get straight into our other units?
That should be all of them.
All right, the chat is commanding our opinions on something that used to be really good in Warhammer Fantasy. I get the feeling you're going to tell me they're not that good, but I want to hear your thoughts on Crocs. What are they called? Croxigors. Are they great again? Because they used to be really good, and then they got hot garbage. Are they back?
Yeah. Yes and no.
Right, you would think yes and no. Dreamer's going to probably be.
I think they're about the same, roughly. About the same as the last book. Like, they're not bad, but they're not great either. They don't stand out.
Definitely better than the last book.
Yeah, a little bit better, but they don't really stand out in my personal opinion. Like, they work real well if they have skinks near them because they get +1 to hit rolls and whatnot. But for the points and for what they can do, I think there's a lot of other things you can invest in personally that do a lot more damage and a lot more. Yeah, a lot more other things. Yeah, that's about as.
All right, let's move along.
But if I want to run Croxigor, there is a way. There is a way. It ties into Thunder Lizard again, so Anthony, you'll be very happy. Pretty much with Croxigor, there's a battalion called the Thunderquake Battalion, and Croxigor can be part of that battalion, along with other big dinosaurs. So they go hand in hand with the big dinos. What this battalion does is basically, I won't go into too much, but you can give the Croxigors +1 attack from the battalion. And so they go up to 5 attacks each with damage 2, and they're 3s and 3s, rend 1 damage 2. 5 attacks each is quite a bit of damage. They get +1 to hit with a skink nearby. That's what makes them 3s and 3s. And you just look at other units, give them buffs like the 3d6 charge and things like that. But I think they missed. The problem is they don't have a skink keyword or a saurus keyword, and that's their main problem. So they don't fit into the synergy with all of the army. If GW are really nice, they could have given them the saurus keyword. I know they're not technically a saurus unit, but it would have been nice to just give them that.
Closer to that than skink.
Yes.
Yeah.
If they gave them the saurus keyword, I would be taking Croxigors probably a lot more, like in the saurus army at least, specifically. But the problem is they don't fit into a lot of the army synergy.
All right, so what I'm hearing is generally not very good, mostly because it doesn't synergize very well. There is a battalion that lets you do it if you want to run them. And as I say in every faction focus, this is your hobby. If you love Croxigors and you want to run Croxigors, do it. We're talking more about an optimized, competitive build. Run these for fun. Do what you want to do, but you're not going to see a tournament-winning list with Croxigors.
Probably not.
Or unless it's in a battalion, likely.
Yeah.
Cool. What about some of the other units? We've got a whole bunch of them, right? We've got, Behemoth.
Can I go with my favorite? Yeah, can I go with my favorite unit then?
Well, go for it.
The Salamander Hunting Pack.
All right. Because people ask about Sallies. They were strong in the old book.
But they are now disgustingly strong, and they're probably they're probably the most disgusting strong unit in the whole Seraphon book for their points.
So I will caveat what you're going to say is they could have an increase in points, so they are very strong. Enjoy them, and this part of the video may not age very well, but right now know that they are very good. Yes, please continue.
So originally they did not have skink handlers. You had to buy them on as an extra, which for the points, I think it's 60 points for 3 skink handlers. Not many people took 40. Yeah, still too many points for.
And it was 2 drops as well. Like
it's 2 drops unless you took the old Thunder Lizard Battalion where they were a requirement.
This is the old rules.
Yeah, the old rules. Now they have combined the Salamander together with the skink handlers, which I think is good because when you take the max squad, you obviously, when something tries to hit it, you just take away the skink handlers and don't lose any debuffs or anything. They also are not, despite the Ziap, they aren't actually artillery, so you can take max sizes and take as many of those as you can fit into an army list. And for what they can do, so what they do is 3s to hit, 6s do D3 mortal wounds, and then they do 3s to wound as well. And then at neg 2 rend, they can take out heroes that are worth double or more, if not more, of their points if you have a max size of them, with that -2 render and then D3 damage after that, which you can actually buff so they can have +1 to wound as well. And a lot of units that I've faced have managed to I can't remember that it was a what's the Free Cities, one of the heroes that rides on a dragon. I can't remember the name.
The Dreadlord on Black Dragon.
Yeah. He charged into one of them. He killed maybe 9 skinks, and I left my salamanders. That unit of salamanders just burnt him alive in combat. I had to get. Yeah, they're good in combat. They only get one. The only difference is they get 1 less attack, and that's about it. They get all their D3 mortal wounds on 6s, -2 rare, and D3 damage. I played a game against.
I think we were, before we started this show, we were comparing them to the Flamer build in Disciples of Zen, like which are brutal. It's just this absolute wall of fire that goes out and burninates everything. Salamanders are crazy good and really strong. They were always strong in the old book. Now they've gotten even more buffs. Yeah,
and they don't have that 8-inch range anymore. They now have 12-inch standard.
So they can be teleported and do
things. Yes, because like the list I take is I take Draconith's Tail, so they're always in the sky, and they're always going to hit something first turn. So like the other game I played against OBR, he had 2 blocks of 40. I can't remember the name. I keep forgetting the name. Their battle line, their swordsman.
The Mortek Guard.
Yeah, Mortek Guard, and I literally just obliterated them into less than 10 models a unit.
Yeah, because Mortek Guard don't get benefits against shooting.
Yeah.
So you're going to rip through that. I've seen some really interesting builds where people are tapping into the teleporting shenanigans of not the Soul Screen Bridge, but the boat driver, the Lachlan.
Yeah.
Like being able to just pick up a whole bunch of dudes and just flying around the board and then just burning everything within 12. Yeah. So, but
you can't do that with flamers because the guy on the boat will take a flamer. But with salamanders, it doesn't matter because they'll just take a skink. It doesn't matter. Tax paid.
Yeah. So something to consider, but because it's really strong, if you don't already own it, don't go too deep because it may get taken away from you at some point.
They do seem a little too good at the moment.
They're very strong. Look, the points may get increased and it might make it not as viable, but just know that right now, as it stands, Sallies are great.
Yeah. So use them while you still can, I say, to dominate your friends.
There is no better way to force Games Workshop's hand is to go burninate everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's what they did to Crowe when he did 138 mortal wounds to Chaos Demons.
The Crowe bomb on the tornado, like the Crowe-nado. All right. We won't talk about things that have been nerfed because Games Workshop might watch this and that sounds like a good nerfing. What other units are viable? You give me another good option. So Sally's...
Salamanders is obvious. I still think Razordons are quite good.
Yeah.
They currently get outshined by the Salamanders, but I still think Razordons are a very good option. The difference between them and Salamanders is you're looking at more shots. Unfortunately, it's a bit random because it's 2d6 shots. But the cool thing with Razordons is if an enemy ends a charge within 3 inches, they automatically get to shoot them, and they shoot d6 shots. So I see them more as like a second-rank support unit to a lot of skink units. So if you go Fangs of Sotek, for instance, they charge your skink unit, your Razordons shoot them, then you activate your ability so your skinks shoot them, and then the skinks could run away. So you can do a lot of reactive shooting, which I think is what the Razordon's strength still is.
There's a psychological piece as well, that knowing that if I charge them, this might happen, so I might just not do it. So then your skinks become this immovable force because no one wants to charge them.
Yeah.
And
not as good in the same stats in combat as Salamanders. I think exact same, except there's no Jaws attack. The Salamanders get a bonus in Coalesced, the Razordons don't. So Razordons are usually looking at the Starborn side.
All right, so if I'm going Starborn, I'm going with the Razordons?
Not necessarily, because Salamanders we said is amazing, but I was just saying the Razordons I would usually take into Starborn as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd say they're more of a defensive unit, so it's an inhibitor to, if you want them to hold an objective, they will probably hold it pretty well because of all that shooting. They get neg 1 to rend if you're within 6 inches of them.
Yeah.
They also have neg 2 to their spike tail attack, which hits exactly the same except for just damage 2, which is kind of more reliable than doing D3 damage.
Actually, that's probably a really good way to describe it, or just even to think about it is, salamanders are probably a bit more aggressive and more offensive, while your
Residons are more defensive.
Residons are more. I mean, obviously they put out attacks, but you're thinking about it more as a defensive. Maybe great for holding an objective. Maybe something that's going to be a support piece for those skinks, as you guys have mentioned.
Residons are also range 18 as well, so it helps them stay back a little bit further.
Yeah.
But I really like both units because they have the 4-up save on the characteristic, and that gives it to the skinks as well. So having skinks with a 4-up save is quite good.
Yeah. And like when someone...
No, please go on.
Oh, so pretty much just like something hits it, you get 4-up save. You might maybe make 2 of them, but then you just remove the skinks instead of hitting the Residons instead, because that's what a lot of people used to do in the old book is just hit. You would have to use the skink handlers as like a little shield if you took them.
Yeah. Something that I want to talk about, because you guys alluded to it right at the start of the show where we talked about the terrain piece, and there are some challenges with the terrain piece, especially you might be putting a terrain piece down that you don't get to use. One of the ways that people have been thinking about this is maybe looking at something like the chameleon skinks, and I'm hearing more and more people talking about the chameleon skinks at the moment. Any thoughts, any opinions around the chameleon skinks, and are they good? Because they used to be really good for a different reason in the old book. Because you could just put them anywhere on the board and ignore, like, you could put them straight into combat. Yeah. Now you can't, but there might be a different reason for them.
Personally, I haven't used them in the new one, but I think they got hit pretty hard. Like, I don't think they're as viable. They didn't even... I think... Their attack where they did extra damage got changed as well on 6s. I think they should have been at least given a rend if they're going to take away that big thing that they could do, which was real good at securing objectives. But yeah,
and
I don't really see.
The reason I say that is what I've heard people doing is, I mean, this is more list tech because we haven't, had as many games on the table that we would normally in a non-COVID world. That people have talked about taking a unit of chameleon skinks, and if that terrain piece is put on the opponent's side of the board because of the way that, the sides are chosen, you could use something like the chameleon skinks to drop down into that terrain piece, get the additional buffs of being in cover and just harassing units with their shooting attack while the rest of your force kind of moves forward. That's some of the list tech that I'm hearing, but is it worth it? That's the other question.
I don't think it is, because you obviously have to invest in that unit. Because how I used to play them is they were the unit that sniped heroes. They were by themselves. That didn't have a good save, like sniping your wizards, and then I wouldn't try and get them to cover. They had that. They still have that 3-up save, but
to me, they look like poor Shadow Warriors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the rend. Yeah, and Shadow Warriors in cover get benefits to the hit and the wound, but the fact that you don't get the rend, and if they're hitting on 3s, wounding on 4s, yes, you can get some stuff like they do get to add 3 to their cover save instead of 1, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Especially if but I don't know.
How many points are Shadow Warriors?
110.
110 for 10. That's not bad. Chameleons are 90 points for 5, and they're 1 wound each. So
and they get 10 shots.
So they're not. Shadow Warriors get 10 shots. Yeah.
Like they're not. I don't think they're worth it, because obviously you can't try and deep strike. And like I've done some real cheap chameleon shenanigans in the old book where they were some guys, Terror Geist, were outside 5 of this knife to the heart objective. I just teleported straight on the objective. He couldn't touch those chameleon skinks, and I just won the game that way.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess what I'm thinking about is if you are going to go for chameleon skinks, you're probably fishing for the ability that if you hit on a roll of a 6, it's doing a mortal wound. So you're fishing for that. But again, is that viable? Is it worth it? You probably wouldn't build around it. It could be something in your toolkit, but
I would say you could use it for like psychological, saying, "Oh, I have to stay here, otherwise this unit could deep strike and just land on my objective. That's the only thing I could say. Like, you can mess with the other player's mind a little bit with this unit, because they can just go, oh, I'm here, now I'm over here. Or you wait till turn 3 or turn 4 when it starts to get close to the game to start utilizing them. But apart from that, I don't think they're an investment of points, even for 90.
So here's the overall thing with Chameleon Skinks is like, in competitive play, objectives aren't in terrain. You have to be a certain distance away from terrain for objectives. So Chameleon Skinks are never going to be on an objective with a 3+ save. That's a huge problem. Because if you're playing Starborn, you're going to have the ability to teleport a unit anyway. Chameleon Skinks showing up in reserve, not super valuable. You could try and do that thing you said where you like be able to put them in the temple. That's requiring you to go first to start with, and not the opponent. And even if you're inside that temple, sure, you're neg 1 to hit and shooting and you're +3 save, but Chameleon Skinks is going to die in combat because you're next to their army, so you're going to die. Like, I see them as almost no value, unfortunately, for Chameleon Skinks at the moment. You talk about the mortal wound shooting, but if you take regular Skinks and you buff them with a Star Priest, they're doing the same thing.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
So they're almost redundant.
Statistically, you're doing 1.5, 2 mortal wounds if you've got the full set of 10 attacks from the minimum unit. And it's good to think this through, because some people are trying to think about how they mitigate that temple being on the opponent's side. And I've seen people talk about the Knight Heraldor as an ally. This is another thing being thrown around. It's good to talk through. I think, like I said, people are just going to have to come to terms with putting it in the middle as opposed to either deployment if they want to like utilize it. Yeah. All right, well, let's move along from Chameleon Skinks. There's a whole bunch of other things that we haven't talked about. We haven't talked about the Ripidactyls. We haven't talked about Pterodons. We haven't talked about Bastillodons. We haven't talked about probably other stuff. What else have we got?
Do you want to go to Ripidactyl, since you look like you were?
So
I was a fan of them old book. I'm not a fan of them now, and I have of them now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me tell you the story about Ripidactyls. Oh my god.
Yeah, like I used to use them a lot.
So I did the math on a full unit of Ripidactyls, right? So you take 12 Ripidactyls. So I believe there are 4 attacks for the BC at the moment.
Tearing Jaws is 3.
3. Okay. So 3 attacks from the beastie, 2 attacks from the rider, 5 attacks per model. That's not bad. It's not bad. The 3 of them, 90 points. They're very mobile because they're fly, they're fast moving. 5 up save to start with. Pretty good. They have a once per game ability at the start of combat. They basically use their little toad marker, which used to be a toad marker you had to put on the battlefield and you had to move around. It's a little bit finicky. But now basically a Ripidactyl unit can once per game affect a unit with a toad, and then you reroll a hit against that unit. So a lot of attacks, no rend, rerolling hit. Looks pretty good. Like I said, 5 attacks per model. If you're in Coalesced, it goes up to 6 attacks per model because they have +1 attack in their jaws, right? They're a Skink unit is the key word. Now that's pretty good. The Skink Chief can give them +1 attack now, so up to 7 attacks per model. The Ripidactyl Chief can give them another +1 attack, so up to 8 attacks per model. You can give them +1 to hit, and then another +1 to hit with the battalion. So hitting on 2s, re-rolling. Yes, okay. It gets a ridiculous amount. If you put the Star Priest on them, I think I averaged out at 57 wounds that have no rend and 19 mortal wounds. So it is a lot, and it's only 240 points for the unit, and it's fast moving.
I used to hate them in the old book because of Thunderquake Star Host and not having to deploy within outside of 9.
Shadow Strike.
Shadow Strike.
Shadow Strike. Sorry, Shadow Strike. Jeez. And we haven't even got to Bastillodons yet, which is like the most brokenest of the bunch. But good to hear we can optimize those rippers.
Having actually heard that actually sounds pretty good. Like I haven't.
He's back on the boat now. He's not going to.
I'm still magic heavy, but.
So one thing people missed about Ripidactyls as well is, like I said, the toad marker is once per game. But what I like to do is take a big unit of 12 and then a couple of units of 3, because when the toad marker is used on a unit, it affects all Ripper units in combat. So your 12-man unit uses its one, and the next turn your 3-man unit uses its one, and you keep having rerolls if you keep having toad markers.
So you're using them to stack. So you're essentially using the smaller units of Ripidactyls as support pieces for that unit of 12.
They go in, they use their toad marker, and then they go off and probably get an objective, something like that.
Are you thinking like 2 support units of Rippers, or is 1 enough?
Yeah. 1 to 2 is what I reckon. Yeah, so I when I first saw the book, I wasn't on board with Rippers, and I did all this math, and I'm like, okay, Rippers sound pretty good if you throw all that in.
So they're essentially just a slightly more deadly glass cannon, like they were in the old book.
Yes.
Yeah, they were a massive glass cannon, and that's why you need to do max damage when you come down. They can still teleport from the sky. Is that not?
It's been hit hard. It's for the one I can't remember which.
The Shadow Strike Star Host.
Yeah, Star Host. Yes.
Yeah.
It's not a 3-incher anymore. It's back down to 9. So it's probably better to just take them without that.
Which is why you also might want to have that chief there to be able to re-roll the charge.
Yeah.
Luckily, before they FAQ'd it, you could take multiple chiefs and they would all be able to buff the same Ripidactyl unit. And you could get them up to like 12 attacks each or something ridiculous. But with the FAQ, they reduce it so the Rip Chief its ability can only affect a unit. It can't stack.
Yeah, it's not stackable.
I will call out a really good point that Crazy Horse has mentioned, which is very, very valid, is that they're on 40 mil bases as well. And they've got
so it is hard to get all.
It's 1-inch range. Yeah. So if you are list teching right now and thinking about the max damage potential of a unit of 12 or getting their attacks in, that's either super lucky or super unrealistic, because getting that is very, very hard. So
but sometimes you look at the optimal math and you always say, well, I know it's not going to be this, but it's going to be a portion of this. So,
I mean, some people won't. They'll look and go, oh my God, I can do like a bazillion damage. When actually, but what you're doing is with redundancy so knowing that you're only getting the 12 or you might only get X. And if you do take some damage, next turn you've still got this constant feed of 6 or 8 dudes doing damage. All right. Rippers, good job.
Yeah, I wouldn't go past Rippers. I'd say they're definitely still good.
And on the flip side, you got your Pterodons.
Pterodons, I mentioned these guys earlier.
They can work really well if you want to do mortal wounds. I still need to get used to how they work mechanically, because if you have your Pterodon chief nearby, they fly over. If they fly over an enemy unit, let's say you try and want to snipe someone's hero, because they have a big movement characteristic of 16. They also have bombs that on a 4-up they do D3 mortal wounds. Let's say you have a max squad and you have a chief nearby that's able to fit that unit within 12 inches, they can do it on a 2-up. So they can probably, like, let's say, I'm just going to say this on a whim, say Nagash is there, you could probably nuke Nagash in one turn if you manage to fly over with all of them while keeping them within 12. But that's one of the weaknesses, is trying to keep them wholly within 12 of the Pterodon. Yeah. So it's a lot of minute mechanics and the movement, and
it's a very niche. It's a very niche thing. Like it has potential, but the likelihood is slim.
They're your kamikaze guys. So they drop bombs and they'll whiff in combat and they'll die pretty much. Apart from that, like, that's the only real reason you'll take them, is to do the mortal wounds on a 2-up, which can do a lot of damage to a unit or a hero that you want to get rid of.
Yeah, it's still a bit random because it's 2-up for D3 mortal wounds, so you could have to do like 3 mortal wounds. And be like, this unit was a waste. Like,
like I would if you want to go Pterodons, because I know people do love the Pterodon model and whatnot. They also have they have increased their bowlers, so like it does D6 attacks, which can be, but they only hit on 4s and 3s. They don't have rend, so they can whiff hard in combat and they'll just die straight away if something has neg1 rend.
Yeah,
I believe they're movement 14 for Pterodons.
Oh, as Crazy Horse pointed out, yes, you can retreat over it. Like since retreating, charging counts as a move, you can also try and do it, and then so you could be 3 inches away, not make the combat, but then you can fly over and then charge into combat.
Yeah,
or retreat if there's something's managed to not kill them all.
Which is also a great reason to take a smaller unit, because you manipulate a bit better.
Yeah.
I think the final thing we talked about, unless another burning point, is the one that is causing the most controversy. The one that is going to ruin your sports score when you go to the next tournament. That is the humble, friendly, always brilliant Bastiladon. Now this has changed a little bit, and they FAQ'd. They might even get an FAQ to that FAQ. So if you do read the battletome, know that please go read the FAQ, because this has been clarified a little bit. How do we tackle the Bastiladon? How do we tackle this?
I tackle him as an enemy.
Yes. Thank you, Jared. We won't forget the Dread Saurian. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Bastillodon.
So let's be honest about Bastillodon. I don't think it's as good as it was last edition, but it's very good if they're not throwing mortal wounds at you ever.
Yeah, I was going to say that about, like, if you don't throw mortal wounds at it, you're going to have a bad time trying to kill it.
Yes. If your army has no ability to output mortal wounds, the Bastillodon is going to probably ruin you. But yeah.
I'm going to start with the the missile weapons. So, the weapon characteristics. So you can take the solar engine. I think it's a lot more. I think they've improved it because it's a lot more consistent in the shooting. Instead of 2d6, you just have straight 9. Yeah. And if you take that Thunder Lizards, you can shoot twice with it for a command point. Javelins, it's no change from the previous book. Don't expect to do much with them. Like, it's 5s and 4s, no rend. But back to the Soul Engine. So it's pretty much the same. Hits on 4s, hit wounds on 3s. 2 more damage apiece, unless you're a Chaos Demon, it goes back to 3 again, which is disgusting when you want to, like, get rid of those nasty Vermin Lords.
When you come across Slash Demons.
Yeah, it's so lovely. Because, like, when I was playing CanCon, versus Slanesh, and my 2d6 kind of made me whiff. That's why I do love how it's just straight 9 shots.
Yeah.
They have made the Arc of Sotek, which is their melee weapon. If you decide to take it, it's utter garbage, I think. Like,
I've taken it once and I wasn't impressed.
How it works is you get 18 dice and 4s to hit, but 6s do. Is it 6s to hit? 6s to hit do. Yeah, 6s to hit do a mortal wound, but then it's 6s to wound. It's just like.
Yeah, so pretty much just fishing for those mortal wounds, which is you should get 3 on average, and
I don't see it as reliable. I would rather take the shooting. The 24-inch shooting,
But are people taking the Bastillodon as like a damage-dealing unit, or is it a distraction can't effects because of that 1+ save?
It can be both.
It can be both. I would say saying, I'm going to, like, you can move it on to an objective, cover it in skinks, and say, have fun trying to get into here while I shoot at you from range and do lots of damage. Apart from that, pretty much.
I mean, so here's the weakness, right? If you do 3 mortal wounds, 2 or 3 mortal wounds, it loses its durability very quickly. So that's its weakness, and people should remember that when they're versing it. When it starts making all of its 2+ saves, when they're ignoring rend all the time, just remember a couple of mortal wounds or a couple of, like, sneaky wounds through will start to, like, cripple it very quickly.
And can we tackle that pink elephant in the room? So if I'm a new player, and it could be the world's greatest player with the way that rule was written, but the 1+ save, how does that work? If you can explain it to me as a new player, who's got this Bastillodon, and I read that 1+ save, and then that quite lengthy FAQ. What's the core of it?
All right. So, say you've attacked the Bastillodon, you've got rend 2 on your attack that went through, right? I roll my dice for the Bastillodon. I roll a 2. Okay. It modifies my dice result. That's what your rend does. It modifies my dice result to a 0, I guess, or down to a 1. I think it can't be reduced lower than a 1. And then because it's a 1 or above, I pass the save. Yeah, that's right. Because the dice can't be reduced down below 1. And so because it's a 1 or above, I pass the save. The thing in the rule says if you roll a natural 1, that is always a fail. So that's why 1 will still be a fail. But anything that's not a 1 will pass until you start to bracket the Bastillodon.
So basically, fundamentally, at its core, if you roll a 1, you take a wound.
Yes.
Yeah. And now, so how do you... how you would counter that is you just spend a command point if you're within a hero, and then you just re-roll your 1s.
or Mystic Shield.
Mystic Shield.
And the reason I'm trying to get to a really simplified version here is when I come to a tournament, that is the type of thing that's going to make me have a bad time with my opponent. They're going to get frustrated if I think that I'm cheating, and they're not going to quite understand the mechanics on how I handle that. So very clearly, we need to be able to articulate that. Basically, for you to do damage to me as a Bastillodon, I need to roll a natural 1 on my armor save. However,
you have to consider it a 2-up unrendable until it takes some wounds.
Correct. The only way, and yes, once I start going down a bracket, that will change. But right now, initially, you're fishing for 1s.
Yeah.
I can still burn a command point to allow me to reroll 1s. But fundamentally, you could have a million rend, I'm
and it'll do
only
nothing.
damage initially on ones.
Yeah.
And I think we need to practice that story so that we don't have a bad time with our opponent.
Yeah.
And like you
Yeah,
said, this is
I'll
the
agree.
story for now because I feel like they went the wrong way with the FAQ and it could change in the future. So this is the story right now at this point in time on the 18th of April, but it could change.
Yeah. Just think about how you articulate that because that will cause a bad time. Cameron, go, sorry.
Yeah, because I think they probably have gotten a lot of complaints about this rule and whatnot, but I would say a 2-up unrenderable is probably for normal, apart from mortal wounds, because obviously we lost our mortal wound save on a 4-up. I'd say our normal save is definitely a lot better, and people are going to have a pain in the ass time. People are going to probably have a bitch at you. I don't know if we're allowed to swear or not, but
That's all right.
I think, like you said, it's going to be a hard time for new players because most competitive lists can put out some mortal wounds, so they're going to be able to deal with it. They're going to have too much of a problem, and they understand what's going on. But for new players, yes, they need to understand how it's working.
I think just being able to articulate it will just make sure that there's no gotcha moments.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have tried to position my units this way to try to take it down that way, or I wouldn't have put my Ren 2 models into this and just be super clear. And if you can simplify it in just that way, or a version of that, then it's clear. Cool. Okay. I'm basically going to try to do as much attacks to you as possible. Forget the
I
red.
hope you roll once.
And I need you to roll lots of ones.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
Cool. Move along.
Okay, so should we go to that other elephant in the book? Oh yeah, Dreadsaur.
Yes. So there's a model that is not sitting in this book, but it is a Seraphon model. It is a Forge World model. It is called the Dreadsaurian. It is going to be a model that will take up more than your carry case, so work out how you move it around tournaments. But it is a freaking awesome model. Talk to me about the Dreadsaurian. Other than we know that under the Thunder Lizards, I always call the Space Lizards, under the Thunder Lizards is 37 wounds.
Yeah. So how it works is it is a good. They've changed it from being a monster hunter. They've changed it from being a monster killer to being a horde killer now. Because it gets bonuses if it's not. It gets bonuses if it's not a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see, because I haven't really read into the Dreadsaur, so I'm just pulling up the rules now.
So I see it more of a distraction card effects, like you mentioned.
It's always
damage output being amazing. Like it's pretty good, but I think it's more the amount of wounds you're putting in.
Yeah, it has. I think it has always been a distraction card effects because it's like, it's a big thing that's stomping around on the battlefield. I do like how they've given it ignore spell on a 6-up.
Yeah.
And I do also like
if a slan's nearby.
When we say distraction card effects, by the way, like this model it's big.
Do you want me to just pull mine down?
Please, if you've got one, like pull it down. Like it is bigger than this screen that you're looking at right now. Like it's crazy big. It's a huge piece of resin. It's like 2 kilos worth. As Crazy Horse has said as well, while Dreamer brings it down, the base size is 280 by 210, which essentially caps an objective. Like if you sit that Dreadsaurian on the middle of an objective, you can't get within 6. It's the size of an A4 paper. That's the model. Like,
I've got one on the way, and I'm very happy to have one on the way.
I'm just seeing if it'll focus. No, it won't.
Yeah. The true comparison is when you compare it to, say, a Skink or any other model, and it's just like, holy shit, this is massive. There you go. Look there. There's a Savage Auric on like a 32. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the rules. 37 wounds under
Thunder Lizard.
Thunder Lizard, or 35 in anyone else. It is a distraction piece. It's going to cap objectives by just purely size of the base.
Yeah.
Anything else, it ignores spells on a 6.
6 or a 4 if
a 4 up,
nearby.
Which is good. It did. It also does obliterating charge. So like if you're a monster on a 2-up, it does D3 mortal wounds. If it is or D6 if it's not a monster, so it can do extra mortal wounds before it actually does its attacks. So, which I think is pretty good. So it also does what's it called? What's the Gargant one when it falls over?
So the giant thing.
Yeah. So like if it dies.
If it dies.
If it dies on a 4-up, it does you roll a dice for each enemy unit that is not a monster. On a 4-up, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So you can also try and finish something off that killed you that you've possibly weakened. It also is a bravery debuff, so like -1 bravery to everything within 3.
I've always seen it as a torpedo. Like it's just like this one model you run at the tastiest monster hero usually, and just do a boatload of damage at it. And if that monster hero comes at you, awesome, you're getting benefits. If not, trying to take it down with generic battle line is.
I do miss that it got rid of. I do like the one thing it replaced it with, but Roar of Ruin. So like it can once per battle, it can half an enemy unit's battle bravery. So like if there's a unit of, let's say, rats, full size, not full size, probably say take it down by 10 or 20, and it's not near a battle or something that gives it battle shock immunity. You can then go, I'm going to half your bravery in half, -1 if you're in combat with it. And that can make it lose a lot more units. What it used to have, though, is I think it was wholly within 24. All your skink units were battle shock immune. Which was real good. Which I think was real good for it, because like you have imagine now with if you don't take Coalesced, that so they have bravery 5, that would be battle shock immune it. And you could have one left, and it could be just being a chaff unit, and you could hold a hero there or a unit there till the next turn.
Anything else you want to add to the Dreadsaurian before we start customizing our lists?
The weapons.
So I do like it. We can talk about the weapons. It has 3 attacks with the Jawless, so it's up to 4 if you're doing Coalesced or Thunder Lizard. It's pretty good. Straight 6 damage to start with. Hits on 4s, wins on 3s. The main problem is hitting on 4s. There's no way to buff that because it doesn't have a Skink or a Saurus keyword, unlike all the other stuff. And then it has a bunch of claw attacks, which are like damage 2, and then 1 tail attack, which is damage D6, but that's like a little extra. I think, like I said, it's going to be in the middle, taking a lot of wounds. The ignoring spells, I think, is very important. So your opponent has to like decide whether to shoot spells at it, because if it resists on a 4+, they're kind of just wasting the spells. And I do like the bravery bomb, the once per game halving bravery. You just got to be careful not to use it when your opponent has like a hero and a command point nearby, or they're just going to auto pass the bravery test. So you got to pick the right time to use it. Remember, it does have a 4+ save, but the Starseer can bring it down to a 3+ save with this +1 save spell, so that's not bad. You can make it pretty durable.
And the fact that the base size is so big that you can just run it in the middle of the board, tilt it in combat, so like the fat side or the long side is in combat, and you've tied up 1, 2, 7, who knows how many units, and those wounds that are going into the Dreadsaurian aren't going into your other units that are scoring objectives that I think keep your army alive. Another thing we should mention is very, very likely you're going to be taking this in Coalesced, so it's going to have -1 damage from attacks coming at it. So it does make it a lot more survivable that way. Cool. But it is a demon, I'm told, so if there's any opponents that have... no, it's not demon anymore.
I've got what's called, it's Order Seraphon Monster Totem and Dreadsaurian.
All right. Cool. Anything else you want to add to the Dreadsaurian discussion?
I'd say if you want to take it, it is a big investment, because I think it cost me $400 New Zealand to get it here from Forge World. I do know someone who has 2 of them, and he's chucked googly eyes on it. He's one of the Seraphon players I've seen. I like, if you want to take a fun meme list that likes to do a lot of destruction, I would say, and you want to invest in an actual Dreadsaurian, go ahead. It would be a fun list to have a game against, because they're like, when you bring it onto the board, everyone's like, oh crap, it's one of those guys. This guy can hit hard, do a lot of damage. It doesn't fit in a carry case, though, guys. It doesn't fit in a carry case. So the Crusader carry case, it's too big. So and it's a big chunk of resin. You're going to have to use metal rods and different things. So do keep that in mind. It also doesn't. They don't supply you with a base, oddly enough. So you have to also make your own base size, which I made mine before they actually released the actual base size they wanted for it. So I actually need to double check mine. I don't really use it though, but
I don't think yours is big enough. But move along. Cool, Dreadsaurian, good work. It's big, it's fun, crazy. 2 other things that I just want to call out really quickly is you've got some ally choices. 1 is your Stormcast. 2 is your Sylvaneth. Without going into such deep books, One, do you take allies? Two, is there anything that you think about when taking allies? Any weaknesses or any synergies? I've already called out one, which was the Knight the Heraldor. If you wanted to toot some mortal wounds off your Realm Shaper engine.
Yeah, to get them off your Realmscaper, so get off.
Yeah. Well, that might be a nice combination. Put your chameleon skinks on, and then like toot yourself away, or
you can. I would say I'll probably say I need to see if I can adjust my list to see if you can take him. But I'll try and take a nice encounter for that comet if you're going into a magic heavy orientated.
Mm-hmm.
But the sad thing about that is you can't buff him with the +2 to +3 to +4. That's the only thing is, but obviously you can always keep him out of range for dispel, and the comet only costs 100 points, but it is 260 points to invest in for something you can't really buff. He does have some nice abilities though, like obviously he has that free dispel, but we kind of counteract that since we can get +3 to +4. He does have that the vials, which he can do a lot of damage to hordes as well. He's, to me, for his points, he's good to ally in. That's the only thing I would really take in. That's actually the only Stormcast model I actually have. Silver, I don't know personally because I haven't actually had a read into it, but there's not many things I think can go into it that will.
I can take over here if you want.
Yeah, we'll let the guy who knows.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure like your Sylvaneth allies still have a way to make a forest with a spell or something. If you're taking
Tree Lord Ancient, I believe, can summon a spell, a tree.
Yeah, so you could do a funny little army where you have the Realm Shaper engine, use the Tree Lord to put a forest in front of them, and then the Realm Shaper engine can target that forest to do mortal wounds around it, which I think would be funny.
That can work.
Yes, because it's a piece of terrain, so you can target it.
How many points is the Remnant? Sorry.
It's probably not worth that tactic. I think it's like around the 200-300. It's a fun tactic, but it's a significant points cost.
Yeah, and a lot of things have to go right for you. But I just thought it was funny. And you didn't mention the third ally choice they have, which is Gotrek.
Well, that's everyone's ally choice. That's everyone.
And I still think Gotrek might have a place in some Seraphon armies because he still fulfills a weakness, which is kind of like taking down Nagash or Archaon or very big scary things.
So he's literally a mini Dreadsaurian. He's a distraction kind of fix.
Yeah. He's good against mortal wounds as well, so it fulfills kind of that thing as well. They're shooting all their mortal wounds at Gotrek, they're not shooting at your army. So I still think Gotrek should be considered sometimes.
Yeah. Just to clarify what I just said, it's actually the Tree Lord, not the Tree Lord Ancient, that brings on the Awakened Wildwood.
Yeah, okay.
To clarify. A couple of other ones I thought about, maybe the Knight of Zeros, getting you to re-roll ones to hit and hit combat and shooting could be useful. I mentioned the Knight Heraldor. The guys in the chat have made an interesting point that I agree with. Tree Revs are a cheap unit that is able to use their wave pipes to kind of teleport around the board as well.
Yeah, better chameleon skinks, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
They're better chameleon skinks, so that could be an option. There are a lot of things, but I think what I'm hearing in this book is there's such good things in this book already, and there's a lot of already power combinations that ally point is taking away from the synergies of the rest of the army. That's you're removing yourself from another Slan, you're removing yourself from another Skink leader, whatever it might be. So weigh it up, but there are some cool allied choices out there.
Yeah.
Cool. Just going to write some notes to make sure that I can timestamp some of this stuff. That's our allied choices. I always get pinged for people like, it's 3 hours long, but I put some notes in. I'll try. Cool. All right. So we've got our list chosen. Actually, you know what? The last thing is endless spells. Let's talk endless spells and then let's customize it. The reason I do endless spells now is because you have bound endless spells. So it's really a part of your allegiance. So you have literally everything that was in malign sorcery is option as a bound endless spell. So nothing within forbidden power. And they are a little bit more expensive than the traditional endless spells that we all get access to. You can still do it. You can still take a generic Geminids. What it doesn't allow you to do is take both Geminids. So you can't take a bound Geminids. You can't take a bound Geminids and then a regular Geminids. You can only have one set of Geminids. Just don't think about that sneaky list tech because you can't do it. So, Dreamer.
So I find, as you said, Geminids, I would say Geminids is probably the most disgusting bound spell you can use because they can't move it and they have to waste a spell to try and get rid of it.
Purple Sun's just as bad.
Yeah, but I'd say Geminids is more consistent. Plus, it does the debuff for neg1 attack, neg1 to hit. And it's also it's a longer range spell because you can put it 18 inches away and then you can just hit and then you move it. And it's always going to be in your enemy's face no matter what they do, unless they dispel it, which is, as I said, wasting a spell. The only thing negative I see is a lot of the spells don't get empowered, so they don't get that extra bonus because it's not on their war score.
Just to clarify, so in some tournaments or some events, it depends on your meta, you can choose the realm of battle. So you can say that this game is happening in Gur or Gairan or whatever it might be. And if you're playing in Gairan, your endless spell could get better. So Emerald Life Swarm, for example, instead of healing D3 models or units, D3 wounds,
you bring back units.
Bring back models, it goes to D6 if you're playing in Gairan. And that's the benefit that Cities of Sigmar brings because all of their endless spells are treated as empowered by the realms. Put that to the side. So what you're saying is that if we were to play in an event like CanCon, now CanCon was in Gairan, and if we casted the Emerald Life Swarm and it was bound, on the War Scroll, it doesn't say bounded by the realm. So I would still only get D3, even though everyone else is getting D6.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider if your local meta is using realms.
Yeah. So like in saying that, like Spell Portal is like kind of worse for us because they can still use it, and we don't get to that if it's empowered. Like how I can't remember the name for the free cities that you play. Is it can't go anywhere. The other one can't go anywhere. You're still limited to that range.
Yeah. But yes. So I mean, like for things like because the Emerald Life Swarm, not Emerald Life Swarm, the Umbral Spell Portal isn't a predatory spell, so it's not an endless spell that's going to hit me at the end of the turn. So the ones that are going to hit me at the end of the turn is going to be the Aether Void Pendulum, but it only moves forward. So your Balewind Vortex doesn't move. Your Burning Head does. Your Chronomatic Cogs doesn't. Your Emerald Life Swarm does. Geminids does. Maelstrom does. Palisade doesn't. Purple Sun does. Quicksilver Swords does. Gnashing Jaws does. Shackles doesn't. Gravetide does. Spell Portal doesn't. So there comes down to a question of, is it worth spending an extra 10 or 20 points to make a bound endless spell when there's almost no benefit?
No, there's no benefit unless like because do you want me to elaborate on that one spell, Coach, or do you want to wait till that? We do. There is a spell that you can take, which is good against very spell heavier. Like if you have like Gobblepalooza who take a lot of endless spells. There's a spell that I think casts on a 7, which you can easily do. And it's called I can't remember the name. It's literally just unbind all endless spells that aren't bound. So like but as well as there's the spell where you can steal someone else's spell to use against them. So like if someone's got a let's say a Palisade or a Gemnid, you can bind it and just and then hit them back with their own thing or send it away. Or if it's something I'm not sure of the OBR ones that are only they can use, but then you can bind it to you can move it away from you.
So basically, that's a really good point, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring out of this is that there is a spell that we're going to talk about really soon, which basically clears the board of all endless spells. It's just like this hard reset. Now, if you have a bound endless spell, so let's say you were to bound your Balewind Vortex, it would not be affected by that drain magic. So there is a reason outside of the predatory that I wanted to highlight, but in most cases, if you were going to not take that spell, then there's almost no reason to not pay for a non-predatory spell as a bound spell, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
So like,
cool.
sweet. What would be a good, like I'd say bound Purple Sun would be good, so it doesn't hit your own guys if you're trying to get closer. As I said, gem nerds.
Can I tell you my favorite endless spell that under Seraphon is underutilized?
Is this the Burning Head?
Yeah, Burning Head. I ran it with my Gits and it was really good, but there's always the risk that it was going to come against me and do mortal wounds to my dudes. Because Burning Head, if you're wholly within 9 inches of it, allows you to re-roll ones to hit, which is really good. But it's going to do mortal wounds to me if someone moves it into me. So if I can choose not to, I'm essentially getting free command points for my Salamanders to re-roll hits of 1, and knowing that it can't go against me.
One also spell that I think is real good to be bound is the Maelstrom. The extra unbind / if you unbind a spell, it charges up. So like how it works is you cast it, you move it there. If you fail to unbind or you unbind a spell, it gets +1 to its thing, so it starts charging up. And then at the end, is it the end of the turn? I'm assuming. End of the you roll a d6 and you +1 all the extra unbinds it does, and on a 7-up it explodes and hits. I can't remember the range. It does D3.
It's 3d6.
3d and 3d6 range, and it does D3 mortal wounds to everyone in that range. So I think if you cast it like you go like I think Coach, you saw that game against Zench where I literally unbound every single spell he had. Imagine if that Maelstrom was there, it would literally blow up in his face and do a lot of damage to everything.
And I just want to call out, and I think we kind of made the point here, is that some of these endless spells are not worth being bound. So like Chronomatic Cogs, for example, there's 99.9% times where that is not worth the additional points. The only exception, in my opinion, if I was going to use that Drain Magic spell to unbind everything on the board, because it's both me and my opponents. So if I had that as my strategy, yes, I want to have a bound and I want to have a bound Cogs. But if I didn't have that in my strategy toolkit, it's not worth it.
Like the only way I would not take a Balewind and still take that unbind all spell is if I cast all my spell. Like if it's not the wizard that has the unbind spell, I would use all my spells first on that Balewind that's not bound, and then cast that spell to try and dispel all his ones and not to worry about the Balewind and just bring it back on next turn.
Yeah, I'm thinking like Cogs as well. Like Cogs, for example.
Yeah, Cogs.
It's a utility piece.
If you use it for that extra spell and then cast that unbind all, I wouldn't be too phased because you don't want them to benefit from that +3 straight if you're going to unbind it. Yeah.
But again, back to the Drain Magic spell.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, I think that's all the endless spells, I think, unless you have anything else.
I just wanted to mention the other strong thing about having boundless spells. I made a silly list, which might work. I don't know. It's a Croaknator list because Croaknator got a lot better with bound spells. I think I put almost every endless spell in the list, and so if you have, because I'm crazy, and so if you have a wall of endless spells that only you can move, the opponent can't move through them. You've got to line it like a movement blocking wall that you can move around. So you can surround enemy units, you can block off objectives, you can do lots of crazy things with endless spells that only you control.
Yeah. My Gloomspite kids are having identity crisis, thinking they wish they were skink priests.
Exactly.
Like
if you verse an army, that doesn't have any ability to unbind or dispel, and it's just a combat army, let's say like Auric War Clans, they don't have any unbinds. You can literally just like surround Croak with endless spells, and he can never be touched by combat ever again. Like, he can just do what he wants, like, and he can never be touched.
And some of those things like Gnashing Jaws have a big base.
Yes, Gnashing Jaws and stuff getting Grave-Tide.
They're dirt cheap.
Yep.
Yeah, like Palisade's a real good blocker as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you don't want, and it's also a way to not get shot off. Yep. Obviously, KO the fast boys, so you'd have to be careful in placement.
Yeah, just things to remember with endless spells is to block units as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've created our list, and we've got a really good idea now of the unit selection. we're kind of going to go into our final stretch, which is now customizing it and getting the most out of our army. So the best way to do that is to look at maybe some of the battalions first, and then kind of bring it all together. And we won't spend too much time on the battalions, but we'll call out a couple if they're good or not, and why they might be good. So the first one is you've got 4 different ones, 4 for the Coalesced and then 4 for the Starborn. So the first 4 that we'll look at is
this is Coalesced.
This is the Coalesced.
Temple Host is Coalesced. Star Host is Starborn. Good
call. And there is obviously a mega battalion that goes with each of them, but unless you're running like a 5,000 point army,
an apocalypse game essentially.
Essentially, if you're in apocalypse games, you can do it, but in a traditional.
And you got a couple of days.
So maybe I'll get your experience on these two, and then I'll move to the other 2. You've got the Starclaw Temple Host, and then the Firelands Temple Host. So there's a various different ones, whether you want to build around Saurus Warriors or Saurus Knights. And then, whether it's a Saurus Sunblood or an Old Blood or a Scarvet. So there's a bit of, differences between the 2 Saurus builds. Any thoughts? One's going to improve the rend characteristic of the jaw weapons by 1. The other one's going to add 3 to the run and charge roll to units in the battalion if they're wholly within 18 of the Scarvet.
So I quite like both of these. The weakness with the Sunclaw is because it gives the jaws the bonus. The jaws are only 1 inch range, so you're kind of thinking like, I want to take big units of Saurus to get the max bonus from this battalion. But because they're only 1 inch range on the jaw attacks, you're kind of like not getting full value out of it. So just got to remember that when you're using it. But I do quite like it because remember they also got to 2 jaw attacks in Coalesced. So they're getting quite a bit of extra from that render 1. The Firelance is the one I've taken more of because the +3 to run and charge. Because I already said I really like Saurus Knights. +3 to run and charge on those guys is really strong. If you include like the Constellation, you're getting +4 to run and charge, and they become a very mobile, charging around unit that we already explained does a lot of attacks. And because it's the Scar Veteran keyword, that can either be the one on the Carnosaur or the one on the cold one if you need to save points.
Yeah. I'm pretty much the same. Like, obviously, if you take it, you get the extra rend, which is good. So both their profiles have rend. And you also get those reduced drops because a lot of the armies, if you don't want to take battalions, do start to become to high drops, like 9+. If you don't want to take any battalions, if you don't find any that take your fancy.
And obviously battalions you come with the lower drop. They come with the additional artifact. Come with
and the command point.
But when I look at your battalions, they're quite generous. It's not like they're asking you to take a lot. And they're often combinations that you would normally take. So they synergize quite well.
Yeah, there's no like redundant units anymore in a lot of these battalions. So it's something you want.
Seas of Sigma would argue otherwise.
I mean, in the Seraphon one. Sorry.
Seraphon, you got the other 2 is your if you are going to be under the Coalesced, is going to be the Shadow Strike Temple Host and then Thunderquake Temple Host. Again, one in the hero phase, pick 1 enemy unit that's visible to the Star Priest or the Priest from the battalion. Until your next hero phase, add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by the battalion. Or in the Thunderquake is going to, in your hero phase, declare that if this battalion is going to be Swift or Savage, which I really like, if you choose to be Swift, until the next hero phase, the units from the battalion can run and still shoot or charge in the same turn. If you choose Savage, until your next hero phase, add 1 to the attack characteristic of melee weapons used by the battalion. I really like this one. Love to hear your thoughts.
If you're playing Thunder Lizard, you might as well take Thunderquake. It just fits hand in hand.
It's kind of a must take. For the Shadow Strike, this is the better Shadow Strike. Oh, my screen's just turned.
The other one's a reserve unit. This one's the +1 to hit.
Yeah, this one's the better one, I think, of the 2. Because you obviously get the +1, as he said earlier, is it gets the +1 to he managed to buff up all his units.
The Ripidactyl unit.
Yeah, with the Ripidactyls. So it's kind of a must if he's taking a pure Ripidactyl heavy army.
Yeah.
Which wants to try and kill a lot of things or one thing in one go without it, like doing the glass cannon effect. I do love the Thunderquake because you obviously do get. I do miss that it does lose the healing per turn thing that it used to have.
Well, the reroll saves is what we all miss.
Yeah, reroll saves. Yeah, reroll saves, because that was very disgusting on Bastillons in the old book.
Yeah.
3's re-rolling.
And Thunderquake is one of the places where you can bring in that Croxigore unit that you were.
Yes, this is where the Croxigore unit shines.
This is where, if you wanted to run Croxigores, this is a nice place to put them in.
I do also like how it's not reduced to range, because in the Thunderquake, it used to be very disgusting in the old book, where it didn't have to be wholly within, but it had to be within 12, so you couldn't spread out as much. But now in this one, you can actually spread your units apart from out of your engine, so they didn't have to remain within 12. So you could have one on the one on an objective, the other one closer or on another objective, and they still got the bonus without the engine having to be right there.
Yeah,
or the Stegodon, that is.
Yeah. So what's really good with Thunderquake is the ability to shoot, run, and charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoot and or charge. Yeah.
Run and then shoot and or charge. So you can do all.
Yeah.
Which is great for Stegodon and Battletome, because they want to do all those things.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point as well you've made, is it's shoot and or charge.
Charge.
Yeah.
You could actually do all three. You could run, shoot, and charge.
And charge.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you don't have to charge.
Yeah.
And then the +1 attack, of course, is like once you get stuck in, +1 attack for your Stegodons, because they have 3 weapon profiles, 3 or 4 weapon profiles.
Oh, let me check out the book.
It's a few, but it really benefits. Yeah.
As well as Bastillon, they do kind of hit hard, but then they get an extra attack which hits on 3s and 3s -1 D3 damage, which does do. That increases to 4s, and it doesn't change in the profiles. No matter how many wounds are taken, it always is going to do 3 attacks. So that extra attack for extra damage is real good.
A great call out as well is and it looks a little bit confusing if you kind of first glance at it, is that the Thunderquake's temple host, one unit of Croxigore or a hunting pack, Salamanders or your Razor.
Probably Salamanders.
Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, run and shoot. I mean, you can run.
Yep.
Yeah. Run your 8, shoot. Run your 8. Run 8 plus whatever, because you can obviously command point that to a 6 and.
Because Salamanders needed all the support that it could possibly get.
Salamanders have been given a lot of love this book.
On the other side of the fence, on the Starborn, you've got 4 choices, and you can tell the difference because you've got instead of a temple host, it's now a star host. So you've got 4. One is the Star Claw, the other one is the Fire Lance. So one is going to improve the rend characteristic of the celestial weapons. So I'm trying to read it really squinty. By 1, don't at me if I mispronounce the name. And then alternatively in the Fire Lance, if the unmodified wound roll for the attack is made by the Fancy Pants weapon, if it's a 6, that attack inflicts 1 mortal wound in addition to the normal damage, which is pretty nice.
Yeah. You can go first, bro.
I was going to say I don't really see people taking either of these very much, because the problem is usually you want to be Coalesced and you want to be Coddle's Claw if you're going Saurus. So these ones can't be taken in Coddle's Claw because it's Coalesced. So I don't see these being taken a lot of the time. If you really still want to run them and you're happy being Starborn and losing out a bunch of like Saurus bonuses to get these, you can take them. But like out of the 2, the Sunclaw is better. The Fire Lance, the previous book had that bonus for the Saurus Knights, and it was terrible. Still is. When they're only doing 2 attacks that can possibly inflict that mortal wound, and you're looking to hit, and then you need a 6 to wound just to get that extra mortal wound, it's not worth it. Especially when it's just on the. It's not just on the charge anymore, but
yeah. I missed when it used to be able to do both.
Yes.
+3 and a mortal wound.
Yeah.
The other 2 you've got here is the Shadow Strike Star Host and the Thunderquake Star Host. The Shadow Strike is going to, instead of setting up a unit on the from this battalion on the battlefield, you can place it to the side and wait it in reserve, and then you can bring them on more than 9 inches away from enemies, and reserves that are not set up before the 4th battle round are slain. So this is where, in the old book, if you played with, say, your Ripidactyls, you'd be able to kind of drop them from the sky. This is kind of no different. You've got the Skink.
Well, this one's 9 inches away. It used to be 3.
Yeah. So it used to be 3, and it would grind my gears. The amount of time I got. Yeah, but so you got to be outside of 9. But this is where you can bring in your Skinks, your Chameleon Skinks, your Pterodons, your Ripidactyls. And it's not a 1-for-1. You can just literally set up all of those units in Deep Strike.
Like, the only way I see the Shadow Strike viable is if you take the Fangs. But the only thing is, none of those units really shoot apart from the Pterodons with their bowlers and javelins. But they're not even. They're only 12-inch range, which already puts you could put you out of range to hit something you want to hit, but they don't even hit that well either. Or 6-inch range with the bowlers, which is the D6. You wouldn't really take this with Rippers because obviously you want to be able to get there straight away, unless you're willing to sacrifice some Skinks as chaff and then hopefully get the double turn or get the next priority roll and then charge over with your Ripperdactyls. But I don't really see it being viable in any way since you can't hit them straight away unless you make a 9-inch charge.
Yeah, which is risky.
Yeah, because as we've been saying, Ripperdactyls are still a very and as he's explained to me, a very good glass cannon.
They are one of the ultimate glass cannons. They do not take a hit very well. The other side is the Thunderquake, which is going to, in your hero phase, heal 1 wound allocated to each of the units in the battalion. If the unit's wholly within 18 of the Slan, you get to heal D3. So that's your Engine of the Gods with a Skink Priest or a Chief, 2 Bastillodons or Stegodons in any combo, and 1 Croxagore or various hunting pack. So
it has the same problem as the other ones, where you want to take that battalion in Thunder Lizard, and so you can't take it in Thunder Lizard because it's locked to Starborn. So they really should have changed up what could be put in these battalions.
I think these battalions should have been changed up to be more magic and more magic orientated, as well as what's the word I'm looking for? Skinks for that Fang of Sotek, more Skink orientated heavy that aren't Shadow Strike but Deep Strike. There's not really much you can do with the Shadow Strike.
For instance, if this Thunderquake could have Troglodons in it, you might actually see it in Starborn because Troglodons want to be in Starborn.
Because they have. Because we didn't really alliterate on him how he has. I'll alliterate now on it. Skink Troglodon is literally can do the Arcane Vassal ability from anywhere on the board. Yeah. So you can cast that 10-inch reach, but then just cast it through him, and he could be right in the enemy's face, and he can hit everyone straight away. He also gets an unbind, I'm pretty sure, and he has Combat's Call as well, I think, if I remember.
And he has a +1 to cast an unbind.
Yeah, +1 to cast. So he's literally a Slan on a dinosaur. Yeah. He's a Slan on a dinosaur.
The point is, a lot of these battalions for Starborn don't have the right stuff in them, and they should have changed it.
What I'm hearing is that the battalions in Coalesced probably synergize with the Force a lot better than maybe the Starborn ones. There are some interesting rules, but maybe for a Starborn army, it's the unit selections are probably not as optimal, or the rules don't synergize as well as, say, the equivalent in Coalesced.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't recommend these battalions that much because I since if you're doing pure magic oriented, you don't really need any battalions, but it does give your drops up a lot. You do get the benefit of extra command points and lower drops if you do, but Croque, Slan, Skink Priest, and everything, they all have a real good command point generator.
You can have a lot.
Most of them on a 4-up. Skink Star Priest on a 5-up. One game, I think you guys came in and Coach came in and I had 10 command points turn 1 somehow, or turn 2.
That's Gloomspite numbers, though.
And I'm just what have I got to do with all these command points? Which I just spent on making sure my Salamanders re-rolled their 1s for everything.
Yeah.
Well, for their hits and shooting and everything.
You mentioned at the start of the game that start of the video that I don't have to be Fangs of Sotek, Dracothian's Tail. I can choose not to be one of those 4. If I don't go one of those 4, it does allow me to be taking things like my first artifact isn't told to me. I can choose. I can also choose command trait. There's other things that I can do. Maybe some rapid fire from you both. If I was going to not take a Dracothian's Tail or Fangs of Sotek, etc., what are the command traits that stand out for you? Now, there's 3 different tables. 1 if you're Slan, 1 if you're Saurus, 1 if you're Skink. Maybe quick one, and I think I know the answer to this one. from a slide point of view, which am I taking? Am I taking Arcane Might, Vast Intelligence, or the Great Rememberer?
So just quickly to throw in there, with the tail and the fangs and stuff, they don't lock you into a command trait unless you pick a certain thing as your general.
I was going to say that as well.
So you can certainly dodge around it many ways.
There are workarounds. Sorry, I was more referring to just generally if we don't go down that route. Yeah. But yes.
The relic is usually what you want to try to get around, because there's no way to get around the relic when you're going into those ones.
Do you want to go first? Me personally, I'm in between Arcane Might as well as Vast Intellect for this line, because obviously I'd like to have it know another extra spell. Like I could have one spell which is the Stellar Tempest, and then I'd have the other one which could be the what's it called? Mystical Unforging spell, which are both really good spells. One is for hitting heroes hard and doing something disgusting, like it's kind of like the Nicket spells for Grots.
Yeah.
As well as if you can re-roll one casting, dispelling, or unbinding roll, which is very good. If you like roll double ones, you go, okay, I'm going to use my command trait and re-roll that, and you might get a 12. It's on a long shot, a 12.
It's consistently useful,
and you can use it to unbind, dispel, or unbind. Which we're one of the only armies which we should have said that gets bonuses to dispel apart from the Rune Lord.
Yeah.
Which
I think Hallowheart has bonuses to dispel because they're new enough. Fame Spell Hunter, I think it's +3 on mine and dispel.
Fame Spell Hunter has that, but just generically, no.
Yeah. Like we just have a generic dispel for like naturally 1+ for our Slans, +1 for the Astro.
But the flexibility as well, like Fame Spell Hunter is only for dispelling endless spells. The fact that you can use it for casting, unbinding, or dispelling, that flexibility.
And global.
Correct. Like even just the flexibility alone.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. Like Arcane Might and Vast Intellect are your two real choices here.
Yeah.
Great Remember is pretty useless because you're already going to have all that command point generation. So I wouldn't worry about that one.
I wish they just gave it back to us, our original one, an extra teleport.
No, that would be too good. I have that.
What about Saurus?
Saurus? He's probably more experienced in the Saurus ones than I am.
I've never taken any of these because they're all quite meh. I'll always go to the next table, the Skink one, which is the standout one.
Does anything in the Saurus stand out?
If I had to choose, I'd probably go for the 4-up command point.
Yeah, because the other ones you can get easily with other things in the book. So I guess you go to the command points.
Yeah, because that's the only thing that Saurus lack is command point generation.
Yeah, like if obviously we haven't tried them all, but if I was building a general that was going to be a Saurus, what stands out? And likewise with the Skinks, like what is the one that stands out the most for Skink?
So the Skink is Nimble. Oh no, it's Nimble for me every time.
Really?
My Skink on the Stegodon with a 3+ save and +1 movement. Every time.
Yeah. Well, then again, you take more combat while I take more magical /
That's true.
Yeah, so like I would, me personally, +1 to casting, I would give that to my Starseer or Skink Star Priest. Plus the fact is you can spend a command points. So, or if I give that to my Skink Priest, I can use that use his command ability because it says from the Star.
That's the +1 to hit command ability, right?
Yeah, +1 to hit. So your Salamanders are now hitting on +2 for free, and then you can spend a command point to buff another unit of Salamanders or something else.
I don't think you can stack it with the Skink Priest one because it's still the same command ability being used on it.
Yeah,
so
you can. It just says only one unit can benefit from this. You can't stack it, but you can cast it on someone else.
Yeah, so you can do like 2 different Salamanders.
Yeah, yes. What I mean is you can cast on a Salamander, and then you can cast on another unit of Salamanders.
Yeah.
Without wasting command points.
For me, that's Nimble on the Skink.
Nimble's for you. What about our artifacts? So artifacts of power, we've got various ones depending again if we're going Slan, Saurus, or Skink. From the Slan, they have more than the others. Skink and Saurus only have 3 artifacts of choice. Obviously, we have malign sorcery as well, but from a Slan point of view, any artifacts there stand out more than others.
You're a Slan guy?
I'll take Grubs purely because it's. Wait, is it Grubs? Yeah. You can heal 1 wound to yourself, so it's more survivability, as well as you can get an extra reroll, 1 casting dispelling roll for the bearer, including in the enemy hero phase you can reroll 1 unbinding. So it's not like it's not like that command trait where you can only do it once. You can reroll 1 of your casting or dispelling, and then in the enemy phase, be able to reroll 1 of your unbinding rolls. So I think that's probably the best one there. Like Light of Draconith, Light of Draconith used to be good when it used to be 18 inches in the old book, but they've never changed it. And 15 inches is a risk to take when you throw your slan right there.
The other standout to me is the Plaque of Dominion. I think it's a meta choice. The being able to target an enemy hero that has to fight last. Because the way that works with things like Demon Princes that say they fight first in the combat phase, basically you negate them from fighting at all.
And you don't have...
So yeah, things like that is like a little bit of a meta pick.
But it is kind of a risky move moving your slan within 12.
Yeah, it's more when they come to you and then just trying to stop them from doing things.
And if it is a wizard, I do like it does give the -1.
But it's like a niche pick, I think.
For me, that would be a second choice, probably.
Yeah. Zotek Dial's an interesting one for me. That the start after the setup is complete, but before the battle round begins, secretly write a number on the battle round. At the start of that battle round reveal, and basically you heal all the wounds allocated to the bearer. And then in addition, during that battle round, you can reroll save rolls. So if you put it on on a slan, knowing the amount of damage that might be taken, you put it on a safeguard round 3. Healing up, your dude automatically, and then still having the ability on a 4+ to bring it back. Could be tasty.
That could be situational as well. If you know you're going up against KO turn 1, you can say, okay, I'm going to spend all my that to not get shot off turn 1.
Yeah, just note down turn 1 to get reroll saves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you once you've started playing this a few times, you'll start to know that people are going to start focusing on a slan, and you can kind of get a good idea of when you're losing your slan, and if it's important to keep it on the table, this could be another way. But yes,
I think everyone's goal, pretty much from even old book, was to kill the slan.
Everyone knows he's a linchpin.
It's protect the slan and kill the slan. It's all, and it still is. From the other side of the fence, when we start looking at, let's say, the saurus versions, any stand out?
Yeah, none of them.
And if none of them, just tell me your crap.
Yeah, out of all of them, Blade of Realities is the only one I've taken and seemed okay. The Blood Rage Pendant is just so terrible. If it was +1 attack for every wound you've taken after you've taken half, it would be good, but it's just bad. And the sigil just doesn't do much either.
All right,
pretty much.
And for most tournaments as well, we have malign sorcery. So if they're not good, let's just go to malign sorcery, choose that artifact instead.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. For me, for these two, I would pick either Sacred Stegodon because it gives 1 to save rolls for the attacks made in Bearer, so you could chuck that on a Stegodon Skink Chief. And as someone said in the chat, they can make it a 1+ save as well with Nimble.
So with the Stegodon Helm, I don't think it affects because relics don't usually affect the mount, right?
But if it's a Skink Chief on the, I think they didn't FAQ about it.
I feel like I actually think it was FAQ'd.
That it counts.
As you can do it. I think it counts.
Yeah.
I think Cloak of Feathers is my pick anyway. So good. Thermal Rider Cloak plus -1 to hit.
Yeah.
That goes on my Skink Chief on Steg every time.
Yeah. Rectices is like situational if you don't want that guy to die, but it's not really one I would take. I'd either take Stegodon, maybe Cloak of Feathers if I went a list that that's what add 1 to 4 because it does give you that chance to get into combat all that sweet with that 3d6 charge if you do that route.
So mathematically a -1 to hit is better than +1 save a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's a better one. And then giving fly to your big monster is quite good.
Yeah. That's great. I agree. We've got a whole bunch of spells, and this is kind of where we start talking about the tactics of maybe why you would take a bound endless spell that wasn't predatory. So we've got 6 spell choices to choose from when it comes to the slan, and then there is also 6 spells to choose from when you're a skink. Which of the spells that are you kitting out your slans with? Might go to Dreamer first. I know he's a big spell casting kind of guy.
My camera's died, and I got that glorious photo.
We'll stick with the audio. Everyone's sick of stuff.
But it's not. So personally, I would take because obviously Slans can change their spell law.
Yeah.
So I personally take if I'm taking Croque, since he can do 4 spells, I would take Stellar Tempest as my first choice, and then I'd go from that to because how I work it is I would give Croque Stellar Tempest. I'll give my other Slan because he's going to be the support that Celestial Equilibrium, which is that gives everyone but himself plus add 1 to casting, dispelling, and unbinding. So pretty much that's what gives me that lovely +4 to cast, dispel, and thing with Croque, which is how I managed to how it's real good for shutting down Zench. You can it's on par with Nagash, because obviously he only has +3 to unbinding and dispelling, unbinding and casting, so you can shut him down just by that +1 for less points as well. Drain magic. If that guy has a lot of endless spells, I would obviously take that. I would switch to that one as well as switching my other one to. Oh, sorry, that's actually with the other one, so I won't say much. Yeah, so cast on a 9, but with +4 to cast, you can obviously
and probably
easily do it with a reroll if you need it. As well as Stellar Tempest is the Horde Killer. Stellar Tempest is your Horde Killer spell, so if they've got lots of guys, it's not as good as some of the other spells that the other versions of this spell, which do, if they cast it on a 10, it does it on a 4 up instead, or that limit. But the thing is, what we have is that maximum range we can do, so I think you can get to up to 32 plus if you can maximize it. Which is you can literally hit a unit that's way out of range of 24 on the other side of the board, and they can't really do anything about it if you're outside the range of the spell. Another spell I'll take if someone's coming right up to you, I did it to a Free Cities guy the other day. Is he wasn't able to make his charge, but he left it in range of me. He had a 2-up save, so it was going to be hard to kill in combat, even with the Salamanders. But what I did was I did Mystical Unforging on him, which is an easy to cast on a 7. You pick a unit within 12, but then you get your +6 from your Bale and +6 from your Astra Bearer. So that's easy enough to get it in. So you get an extra 12, so 24 inches. You automatically suffer D3 mortal wounds, but then on a roll of a 5-up, that it literally has no artifact anymore. And I actually managed to do that against my first game with that list, and it just destroyed his artifacts. So then my Salamanders then destroyed him because he then went from a 2-up to a 3-up, and then he went to a 5-up with that Neg 2 Rend.
Yeah, I think that's great, especially right now. When I do those shows like the Emerging Meta, the number one artifact that people are choosing is things like the Ethereal Amulet, and the ones that are taking it the most, the Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, the
Stone Lord.
The Frost Lord on Stonehorn,
yeah,
and as well as the Mega Boss on Maw Crusher. So keeping those models that are normally on a 3+ and are very hard to take down, especially when some of them can heal, destroying that artifact, you will take that monster down so quickly.
Yeah.
I pretty much agree with everything he said. The only thing I've been doing is because his is a very spellcaster-centric list. When my Slan is staying back as the support, I usually start with Walk Between Realms because I find it's the spell that is usually going to come into effect in turn 1 the most. When someone charges in on you and you need Fly to get away, or you need Fly to shut down Cadron Overlords being able to teleport away, things like that. Fly is usually the thing I find I need in the first turn the most, and then I'll swap it out from there if necessary.
You just want more chances to get that Flying Dread Saurian, don't you?
Yeah, that too. If you just want a Flying Dread Saurian.
I could see for your list as well as that Celestial Apotheosis for that healing as well.
Yeah, for the big dino healing.
Yeah.
What about skink spells?
For me personally, I'll take Hand of Glory as well as Binding the Spell's a real good one, which is that cheeky, I'm going to steal your spell for a hero phase so you can't move it.
Yeah, so that Bind Endless spell is great. I spend a lot of points on my Phoenix Guard and have the empowered Endless spell to bring back Phoenix Guard. And if you were to take it over for a turn, that would make me cry because you spend so much points in that unit.
Yeah.
I also find it for binding a spell, if someone's got an offensive, I keep screwing up the name, the D6 Mortal Wound Scythe.
The Aether Pendulum.
Oh,
your
yeah,
pendulum. So like if someone's got a pendulum coming your way, I know it only moves one way, but if you bind it and
You
then
can choose to move it a fraction of an inch.
you can move, you can only choose to go, oh, you're not going to hit my units because I'm not within an inch.
Yeah.
I'd have to ask the question though, like, is it just better just to dispel it then? Like, if you're getting cast, you might as well just dispel it.
No, because then they have a chance to cast it again. And then, like, you could, because then if you win the turn, you bound the spell to you. So you then just move your skink, then it just walks, and then it just goes to the end of the board, and he can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
It becomes a waste. Tide of Serpents is a good. It's a simmered down version. It's kind of like but slightly weaker than your the Free City Sorcerer one, where it does it on a 4+. But you can still buff the range of that, because like the max I've managed to do is 24 inches, which I had trouble with Blue Horrors the other night, but when they had all those brimstones and everything out, it just equalized it and just destroyed that whole unit with that one spell. And it's a good spell to have for mortal wounds, especially when you're casting it out of the temple, because you get that bonus range from that as well.
Yep.
Hand of Glory I find good, as well as if you cast them on a unit of Salamanders when you buff them to +2 to hit, because they automatically get reroll ones.
Yeah. Celestial Harmony is pretty much necessary in Coalesced to help you ignore Battle Shock, because your bravery is not great.
Yeah,
So I've been taking that one a lot.
But it is a hard to. Oh no, sorry. Oh yeah, and I do agree with.
Yeah.
If you do get the casting of 10 or more, pick all friendly units within 18, which is very good.
That was just like lucky if you get that in Coalesced though.
I don't see much point of the Extend Astromatic spell, which is just a terrain piece, unless unless you want to shut down someone's gnaw holes where they get +1 or their Maw Pot, so they don't get that arcane feature rules, if that counts.
Someone in the chat's made a really interesting point around that fiery spell, which is fascinating, because initially when you read it, it sounds a bit hot garbage. You know, you basically pick an enemy unit within 18 and you roll a dice for each phase, and roll of a 6, they take D3 mortal wounds. And I'm looking at that going, it's not that good. But when you start thinking about going into a double turn or trying to ignore a double turn, then essentially you almost have 12 opportunities to roll a 6. You could delete a small hero, because the likelihood of getting a 6, you should get 1 or 2 6s on average.
Yeah, you should get 1 6 per turn.
In a double turn, you should be able to do 2d3 mortal wounds. So in that combination, actually, that's not a bad call out.
Yeah, it could work. It's just
worry about being too random, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to go in with the strategy of a double turn, or it might be a way for you to avoid getting double turned.
Yeah, and it is a way. It is a range limit as well. I know you can buff it, but obviously some heroes that you want to snipe won't be in range of even the buff, maybe. Yeah. With the buff, but it just depends. And plus, they might have an ignore spell on a 4-up or something, which is. But I personally think Tide of Serpents, even if it is not a horde, they're not a horde army. They still. Oh god, that's a glorious photo of me with my camera died.
Feature peek in the show.
I look like I'm disgusted as hell.
Not what I'm looking at, but I mean we've got some great spells. I think. Ewart, is there anything you want to add to that before we kind of wrap things up and get maybe some tactical insight?
So the only useful thing with Astro Matrix that I've used is to take away Mystical from someone when they had a whole bunch of guys in Mystical. But that's about the only thing I see it useful for. It is till the rest of the game, I'm pretty sure. Let's have a quick check.
Which spelled it, sorry?
The Extend Astro Matrix. I think it was end of turn.
Any damn so extend blah 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 6, cast on a 6, pick one enemy terrain piece wholly within 18 of the caster and is visible to them. Any damned arcane, inspiring, or mystical terrain only applies to Seraphon units while they're deadly and sinister. Yeah, it doesn't say till the end.
So it is till the rest of the game. So you can like slowly convert terrain, which is cool, but not very strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it worked on new table stuff as well, like nullification and commanding and things, it'd be way more useful.
Yeah.
To answer Sani's one just for everyone is you would only get the spells if you had them as your allegiance. You wouldn't get the spell lore outside of the allegiance, but you do get the you get the +1 to cast. You don't really need to take them out. The only heroes I would ally in are skinks mostly, just because they're cheeky little buggers, but
people used to ally skinks in it as
Stormcast used to take them a lot.
Yeah.
But they're cheap battle line, 60 points. You can bring them in. And not many people can ally Seraphon anyway.
Yeah, only Stormcast, and I'm guessing they're going to go into it because obviously they said we have Sylvaneth as our allies, but
so next Sylvaneth book,
maybe they certainly need some love. But to kind of close this video out, I want to get your tactical insights based on your experience. Teach me, if I was a new player, or someone who maybe even wants to go well at a tournament. What tips and tricks and ideas and things that you've learned, what advice would you give me to help me on my path of becoming an old blood? Ewart, I'll go to you first.
All right. So I wrote down some tips for new players. Like if you want to get into Seraphon, there's currently 2 start collecting boxes, and they're both very good value from Games Workshop. They both have things that you're going to be using. So unlike some of the other armies, the start collectings for Seraphon are both fantastic. They both have a big dinosaur in them, so there's a lot of like draw from them. What do I say? When you're playing Seraphon, I think it's important to remember that board control is a very big part of Age of Sigmar, and you want to make sure that is one of your main things you're doing. A lot of the army relies on buffs, like synergizing command points and stuff. And you've got to play a balance between keeping your guys together to receive those buffs and also spreading out to get objectives. Because at the end of the day, objectives is how you win the game, and you've got to be prepared for that. My top tips that I wrote down is get to know all of the General's Handbook command abilities, like the reroll 1s for saves, reroll 1s to hit, because you're going to have a lot of command points at Seraphon. So you need to know all the ways to use those command points.
Yeah.
I still meet people that have been playing for a couple months and I use the General's Handbook command ability, and they'll be like, "What's that? I've never heard of that." And I'm like, "Well, you need to do your research because these things are amazing." And also get to know the numbers for all the ranges of the abilities, because they are different. There's like some that are 24, some that are 12, some that are 18. So don't get caught out where you're like, "Oh yeah, this one's 18 inches." Then your opponent's like, "No, it's 12. What are you doing?" And then you're just completely out of range. You're like, "Well, that screwed up my turn." So you got to start to memorize all those different buff range numbers. That's probably my top tips. Try not to be centered around one like combo too much in your army building. Go spread out.
And Cameron?
The books are very. The boxes are very good value for money. Make sure you know all the things. I would obviously invest in a Slan, invest in a Star Priest, invest in a Priest as well. Those are the. If you're going into Magic heavy, let's start getting into like Crowe, your Astro Banner, because those give the best buffs. Look into maybe getting the Malign Sorcery, because as I said, that's one of the only things that no one else has is the Bound Endless spells for pretty much only 10 extra points. What else would be there? Obviously, Skinks are big investments as well. And I'm going to go on again. Salamanders are one of the best investments until they maybe change the points, maybe by 10, hopefully. Here's hoping. It just depends on how you want to play the list. If you want to go combat orientated, go the Saurus route. If you want to go Jurassic Park on someone, go the Stegodons, the Bastillodons, the Carnosaurs. If you want to go Magic, do what I'm doing at the moment is just the Skinks as the battle line because they're cheap. Get your deep striking Salamanders, get your Crowe, get your Slan, get your Astro, get your Priest for all the buffs. But apart from that, you can also go, if you want to go to the teleporting shenanigans and whatnot, obviously you can go your Pterodons as well as to get your Mortal Wounds and damage, because from what I've seen, Mortal Wounds is still one of the big metas as well as Hordes.
Yeah. A couple of other thoughts that I've had with this. One, a lot of people have been curious on the Salamander models. As cool as the Salamander rules are, the models are very out of date. So something you might want to consider is looking at a third-party sculpt. There's some really nice third-party models out there. As long as you're not playing in a Games Workshop or you're going to attend a Games Workshop event like the Heats. There's some really nice Salamander type models that I would recommend.
And it's also to illustrate, Salamanders are not very cost effective. You get one of them plus 3 handlers for, I think 18
40?
pounds. Like I'm going by
$40
pounds.
something? Right.
Yeah, 40, $50, which is not really great if you need to. Like, I still need to buy 6 more salamanders, so I'm probably going the. I've got 3 original ones, but I'm probably going to go to the third-party route as well.
Cost aside, they're models that feel like a 5th edition sculpt. They really old. And
the video, they're out of stock as well, right? Like you just can't get them.
Yeah. So that'd be one recommendation.
Also, they're resin, so they're not fun to assemble sometimes, as well as
the third-party ones will be resin as well.
Yeah, but Croxagores are probably one of the worst resin assembly models as well to try, because you have to pin everything. You have the things don't fit properly, so just be careful with the Croxagores. There are some real good Croxagore third-party models. Like there's a couple of people who have actually sculpted the ones from Total War, which are a lot awesome looking. They look so much better.
More crocodiles.
There's also, is it Lost Kingdoms also have them if you have the money? Lost Kingdoms have some real good ones if you have the money.
I'm not going to spook anyone in particular, but like just go Google search and go look at alternative models. There are some good ones.
I was going to say with salamanders, because salamanders are a very general like role-playing game monster. You should be able to find them like D&D minis and things like that. You should be able to find like salamander proxies.
There's heaps.
One thing I've had to do is try and find all my skink handlers now, since they're now a requirement.
Yeah.
Like
conversion opportunity.
Yeah, like I tried to buy some of the old ones, the old metal ones, and I think a squad of 9 sold for $100 US.
Yep.
Moving along, the last question I'm going to throw at you. This is coming from the chat, and I think it's a great question. Is the final comments before we kind of wrap this up? Is if someone is listening to this and they're not playing Seraphon and they're going to face Seraphon, what would your counter? What would be the counter that I would need to apply to a Seraphon force, or what would be some things that I could do to mitigate what you guys have just talked about for the last 3 hours?
If I come across an enemy Seraphon force, killing characters is going to be a big thing, because like I said, there's a lot of synergy between command abilities and stuff. And also killing skink units down to 14 guys, because there's 15 and above is where they get scary. So as soon as you kill them down to 14, they're a lot less scary. And don't fall into the trap of just trying to go after the Slan while the Seraphon player is winning the game with objectives. Just don't tunnel vision the Slan every time.
Don't tell them that. Don't tell them that.
Because the Slan is the one that we'll focus on. But like if I'm playing against Dreamer, I want to take out his Astrolith Bearer. I want to get Salamanders. I want to take things that are also buffing his Slan as much as obviously the objective, which is the Cool.
So like as I think we said earlier, KO is probably still one of the most competitive armies against us, because they just invest purely in shooting and movability. I had a game against Archeon and Ewart Chosen and everything. That was a hard game. It's also mission situational, because like if it's I can't remember the campaign, I forgot. It's the one where it's kind of like whoever takes the objectives first kind of win the game in a sense, unless you can blast them all off in turn 1. And because Be'lakor literally just went, okay, everything you do on a 4 or 5 up, you can't do anything. So they literally make all my rolls didn't obviously get it because it's kind of hard. Make Crowe useless turn 1.
Yeah.
Which could have.
It's just another call out I think is important to make here is mortal wounds are a killer for Seraphon. But a lot of people are getting their mortal wounds from spells, and there's a really good chance I'm not going to get my spells out. So look for ways that you can deal mortal wounds outside of magic. So like for me, my Celestial Hurricanum is critical and keeping that alive. But there are a lot of other ways to deal mortal wounds. Things like the Slaughter Priest and being able to force people to re-roll casts, like just things like that.
Yeah. So one of the weaknesses I think is like because what Celestial Hurricanum is that shooting mortal wound 1A.
It does shooting mortal wounds, and it's not a magic cast. It can cast spells, but it's based off an ability, not a spell.
So a way to counter Draconic Tail is you literally just have to kill both the Slans, and then those Salamanders are not coming out. They're not coming out to cause a lot of damage.
So the challenge is being able to get to it. So whether it's the reach, whether it's teleporting, like how do you do it?
And the misconception is that how my games have gone apart from that ever chosen one is everyone always gives me first turn because they don't think I can hit them as well. But like if I go first, my salamanders, if I have the opportunity to kill scary big units or a hero, I will aim to try and kill it because like one unit of salamanders will hit this unit, one unit of minutes will hit this unit, and another one will hit this unit. They will do it unless they have real good saves. Have cocky loaded dice, or they will most likely die. Like that OBR game I had, I killed nearly 2 units of 40 and one of his catapults turn 1. He wasn't able to recover. And because of the fact that we all have those handlers, he tried to nail this one unit turn by turn. But because I just removed all these skink handlers, at eventually I only lost 2 salamanders out of 1 unit.
Yeah.
Everyone else just had their handlers removed slowly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, also adding another one. Oh, you can go first.
Oh, far out. I was going to close the show. But you got one more.
I would say the one thing is obviously big rend does actually hurt us as well.
Yeah.
So like things that have neg 1, neg 2 rend can hurt us. Like skinks, they may have a 5 upside, but if you have neg 1 rend bog standard, it goes back up to a 6+. Obviously things like those catapults. Reason why I went for them first is they do their 5 damage with that 36-inch shooting thing. So he can, even though he can buff his catapults, I'm pretty sure, and they can just snipe my croak and stuff turn 1 if they can hit.
Is it once per battle auto delete as well from them?
But in saying that, like people do target the Slan, but I'm more aggressive with my normal support Slan because he does have that survivability artifact that I normally take, which is the 1 to 3. He dies 4, 5, 6. He's back on, and he doesn't get all that damage, which is a lot better than the previous artifact that it used to be able to have because you used to just take the damage straight after he revives.
All right, Ewart.
Just really quickly, another important thing. This is carry over from the last book as well because we still have the teleport to Starborn. Is remember chaff units or like units that you're willing to sacrifice to like keep Seraphon back, because like with Cameron's Tricothian's Tale, he's going to teleport 9 inches away from your salamanders, and if you leave things out in the open that he wants to kill, he will kill them. So you need to like layer your units. Don't leave openings easily. Yeah,
don't leave openings. And like I will try and find an opening because that teleport is and that deep strain because it's not how it used to be. It's just 18. I have 18 inches wholly within to deal with, and only 9 inches away, which is easy enough.
All right, you guys
got to utilize that 9 inches away the best you can.
Yeah.
Keep your screens because you guys have a lot of high movement. You have teleporting, but screening will at least keep a little bit of that at bay.
Yeah.
We've gone through a lot. We've gone through over 3 hours of content, and there is more that you guys could talk about with Seraphon. I know you are big in Reddit when it comes to talking Seraphon. If people want to talk more with you, they want to share list ideas, they want to hear more about the hot sauce, where can they find you?
So if you have a Reddit to Seraphon, it's a growing little community. There's about 1,100 people currently there. People posting all the time with like their hobby activities and lists, and there's a guy doing videos on like optimizing units. So he did like the Croxagore one, which I looked at and I was like, yeah, Croxagore pretty cool. All right, we might be able to make this work. So it's a cool little community that's building. It's good to see it. So I'm over there. I'm checking it every day. So if there's like questions and stuff, I could be there.
And what's your username on Reddit?
My username is Dacekhan. It's my gamer tag as well. So if you see me in a video game called Dacekhan, you know it's me. I just killed you.
And Dreamer, if people want to chat to you more about Seraphon, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me. This is going to be another plug for you, Coach. On your Discord, I also have my.
Wasn't planning that one. All right.
No. I've also got my Twitter, which I think you said you linked in below. If you can't find me, there is also Lustria Online, which is a big Seraphon website. Which there's people that discuss lists and stuff. It's a more integrated website. Then, like, I haven't been on the Reddit Seraphon one yet because. I normally just talk to people, and there's also a Seraphon Discord as well, which is all like people from Reddit, people from the Lustria Online and whatnot. But apart from that, that's the ways you can contact me.
Sweet. All right. Well, gentlemen, you have provided some amazing insight to Seraphon. I can't wait till the tournaments resume and we get to really see the potential of this army. I know people are playing with them in tabletop sim, and Cameron, I've seen you decimate people with your magical supremacy. I can't wait to give you a test with Hello Heart to see how you guys go. But Ewart, Cameron, thank you both very much. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you've liked it. Leave a comment. Do reach out to these boys if you've got any feedback or ideas on lists, and get back in there and roll lots of sixes, guys. I can't wait to see how you guys shape the meta.
Yeah. One last closing comment. I just so
adding value.
Don't believe all the salty people. A lot of people got salty when this new book dropped because we lost a bunch of like broken rules. And when the book dropped, a lot of people were negative and salty about this book. Don't believe it. This army is still great. Play Seraphon.
Yeah. All right. Nice parting comment. Play Seraphon. I led the charge with Make Saurus Great Again. They are great.
Yeah.
Hail to the blot toad.
Hail to the blot toad. All right. See you guys. Thank you very much.